continues to inspire Africa and the world, proudly sharing
the African perspective.
I found the joy through all the pain, I found the sun.
It is the 16th of February. It is a Monday. Happy New Week. A very good morning to you as we say, rise and shine with us, Africa. With me, Asanda, Beda and Peter Ndoro. We'll be letting you know what's coming up on the show today, together for the next 3 hours. Let's start you off with the news first. Here is Matapelo Mahape. It's 6 o'clock Central African time.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda, and good morning. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has raised concern on the instability in Sudan and South Sudan at the African Union Leaders Summit in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. African leaders gathered over the weekend to discuss peace and security on the continent. Ramaphosa has called on AU member states to help other African countries that are facing political and security crisis.
As we meet here, a number of African countries are currently under suspension from our union due to unconstitutional changes of government, thus reversing the democratic gains and development of our continent. The slow transition to constitutional order by the suspended countries is a matter of concern.
And Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed says his country has taken drastic measures to address water shortages. He was addressing the African Union Leaders Summit in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. Ahmed says no country can function without water.
Water is more than a resource. It is a foundation of development, innovation, and stability. It shapes our cities, our farms, our health, and our peace. Here in Ethiopia, we have learned that responsible water management is central to guiding development wisely. The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam now powers homes and industry, exports electricity to neighboring countries.
And the World Health Organization, WHO, has criticized a now-halted plan to run a hepatitis B vaccine trial involving thousands of newborns in Guinea-Bissau, calling it unethical. The US-funded study had sought to give one set of babies the vaccine at birth, while another would have had the shot delayed until 6 months of age. The WHO says it is concerned about the plan and described the birth dose vaccine as an effective and essential public health intervention with a proven record. And Ghana has requested the extradition of a Russian man who allegedly recorded his sexual encounters with several Ghanaian women. He then shared the videos online without their consent. Russia doesn't extradite its citizens except in extreme circumstances. The BBC's Makochi Okofa reports.
The authorities say such acts are criminal under Ghanaian law. The ministry added that it is working with the Ministry of Communication and Digital Innovations and other agencies to prevent and respond to image-based sexual abuse. Reports online suggest the same individual may be involved in similar illegal acts in Kenya. UN Women reports that between 16% and 58% of women and girls worldwide experience digital violence, including harassment, cyberstalking, and non-consensual sharing of intimate images.
And there's been demonstrations in several cities across the world against the Iranian government on an international action that Reza Pahlavi, the exiled son of Iran's last Shah, has called for in January. Tens of thousands of people are estimated to have died. This after Iranian authorities cracked down on demonstrators. The BBC's Kashayar Junaidi reports.
Los Angeles and California are the base for a biggest Iranian diaspora community. But people not only from California, from other parts of the U.S. had traveled to Los Angeles to participate in this rally. More than 300,000 people also gathered in Toronto, as well as close to similar numbers in Munich. So far, the biggest gatherings of Iranian opposition outside of the country since the victory of the Islamic Revolution in the past 47 years.
For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I am Matapelo Mahape.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In our sports headline, India crushed Pakistan by 61 runs to reach T20 World Cup Super 8. And Carolina Mukova stuns Victoria Mbogo to win Qatar Open. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
From Africa's broadcast capital to the furthest corners of the globe, this is Rise and Shine. Every weekday mornings on Channel Africa.
A very good morning to you. Thank you so much indeed for joining us for this, the first hour of Rise and Shine. First day of the week, Monday, the 16th of February. And we're streaming on the internet, channelafrica.co.za is where you can find us. And also on your mobile phones, just go to your app store and you'll be able to find us looking for SABC Plus, that's SABC Plus, and then look for Channel Africa. And then, of course, Rise and Shine, the best way to start your news day, because we'll give you the current affairs and news that matters across the continent. My name is Peter Ndoro. Good morning, Asanda Beda.
Good morning, Mr. Peter Ndoro. Happy Monday. Happy New Week. Here we go. Let's conquer.
Amen to that.
How was the weekend?
I rested. That's all I did. I didn't do much. I watched a bit of football, played with my children, and that was it.
Were you happy with the outcome of that football that you watched?
Do you know what? Man United is not in the FA Cup, so...
You're not stressed?
I wasn't stressed. We were already defeated a long time ago.
No, I had a great family weekend.
Yes,
had a visit from my father who lives in a different province of South Africa.
Fantastic.
So that was great.
Nice. Happy times. So what's coming up on the show?
One of the stories we'll be looking at, and good morning everyone. Thank you for choosing us to wake up with as Rise and Shine. An effort is being made to renew a memorandum of understanding between the African Union and the Symposium of Episcopal Conferences of Africa and Madagascar, or SECAM. This is aimed at strengthening cooperation on human rights, good governance and integral human development. We'll discuss that further with the SECAM representative, a liaison officer, more specifically at the African Union in Addis Ababa.
There's a conversation I had that I'm really excited about. I spoke to Dr. Tariro Makadzange, who's a Zimbabwean doctor, scientist, researcher. And why this is so special is that Time magazine has every year its list of the top 100 most influential people in health across the world. And she's on that list. Young Zimbabwean woman on the list of the top 100 influential people in health. And I'll tell you why in the conversation, so you've got to listen for that. But first, what do we have? We're going to have Africa Roundup
coming up.
Africa, meet Abedi.
Yeah, that's me.
Abedi is a music lover through and through.
I really love African music.
He's got a taste for all kinds of tunes and spends his days listening to Channel Africa. Guess what? He didn't know.
Okay.
Channel Africa wants to help Abedi and all music lovers everywhere to discover even more incredible music. That is why Channel Africa is calling on all African musicians to submit their music. Musicians, remember to give us all your relevant information. Make your submissions at music@channelafrica.co.za. Submissions are your chance to be heard on radio. But sadly, they do not guarantee that you will be playlisted. All submissions will be carefully reviewed to see if they meet our station's requirement. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
It's 10 minutes past 6 at Central African Time, and it's time now for our daily Africa Roundup. Now, each morning after the 6 o'clock news, we'll bring you a concise update on the key developments shaping the continent and the world over the past 24 hours. And we do this with insights from our team of journalists, correspondents, analysts, and of course the newsmakers themselves. We place the day's biggest stories into context for you, helping you stay informed, connected, and prepared for the day ahead. Let's begin with this story that takes us to Italy and the continent. Well, Italy has announced a new climate-linked debt initiative for African countries. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni says that Rome is prepared to allow nations hit by extreme weather events to suspend debt repayments, giving them fiscal space to respond to climate shocks. She was speaking at the second Italy-Africa Summit in Addis Ababa, held on the margins of the 39th African Union Summit and the continent's highest decision-making body. Rachel Graham picks up the story for us.
She said Italy and its African partners had focused their latest talks on the continent's debt burden.
Italy has decided to launch a vast program to combat the debt of African nations, which includes among its main points the complete transformation of the debt of the most fragile and vulnerable countries into investments.
African heads of state gathered at the continent's highest decision-making forum to set political priorities for the year ahead. Focused on peace and security, Italy's far-right government unveiled its Mattei plan for development in Africa last month, hoping it would help spark economic growth that will curb irregular immigration to Europe.
Frontline health workers walk the streets of Blantyre in Malawi, urging parents to vaccinate their children as the country launches an emergency polio campaign after a new case was found. But authorities must overcome cultural barriers to prevent further spread of the virus. Sean Hogan has more.
Elizabeth Malango is on a mission to educate her community about the dangers of polio. She is one of many health workers fanning out across the townships of Malawi's second city, Blantyre. That's as the country began an emergency vaccination campaign on Wednesday following the detection of a new case of polio. Polio has remained a recurring threat in Malawi, with the last major outbreak recorded in 2022. Across Blantyre, health workers carrying vaccines in coolers are making home visits. Children who miss doses remain at high risk of polio. With education, health assistants say attitudes to vaccination are shifting. But Malawi's Deputy Health Minister, Charles Chilambula, said cultural and religious beliefs still prevent some families from seeking health care.
There are some religions that don't believe in going to the hospital. And there are some cultures which don't believe in vaccines as well as going to the hospital. So these are some of the things that still exposes these children to these viruses, including polio.
South Africa's southernmost province, the Western Cape, is facing one of the worst droughts in living memory, forcing the government to declare a national emergency this month.
Cattle, we've lost 16 cattle.
Ilza and Christian Pienaar farm livestock in South Africa's Western Cape. It's the country's most affluent province, drawing tourists to its vineyards, beaches and the lush slopes of Table Mountain. But it's also going through one of the worst droughts in living memory, drying up dams, scorching grass and killing animals. Ilza says there's no grazing for their cows, sheep and goats. Mothers aren't producing milk for their babies. That means they're having to spend big on feeding their livestock.
Now we're running out of funds. And then still we need to buy food for our family. So from here on, I really don't know.
Scientists say climate change is worsening droughts in the province. Western Cape Premier Alan Wynne said they're investing in measures such as extra boreholes for water. Meanwhile, in the Knysna township, people are relying on water provided by Gift of the Givers, though the NGO's Southern Cape coordinator Mario Ferreira warned that it is proving too expensive to keep trucks on the road day after day.
Many cocoa farmers in Ghana are facing delayed payments from the country's regulator, leaving them struggling to cover basic living costs. One of them, 65-year-old Joseph Bema Dote, delivered 6 bags of beans months ago but has still not been paid, forcing him to survive on just 1 meal a day.
Joseph Burma Dottie is among thousands of farmers in the country struggling financially as thousands of tons of unsold beans pile up.
As a retired teacher or a pensioner, how much do I take as a pensioner? Then to look after the children also in school, and then myself. So it has affected my life so much that I can't even describe it.
Ghana is the world's second biggest cocoa producer behind the Ivory Coast. Global cocoa demand has fallen sharply, sending prices down by half over the course of a year to around $4,000 a metric ton. Ghana's farm gate price is higher at nearly $5,300 a metric ton, which has depressed demand from international traders, leaving farmers unpaid. The market regulator said last week it has about 50,000 metric tons of unsold cocoa at ports, adding that it is in talks with farmers and the finance ministry to try to resolve the situation. Cocoa can be stored for only 6 to 12 months before losing quality in hot humid countries. A coalition of farmers in Ghana said it was willing to accept lower prices for future deliveries if the government agrees to sign a memorandum of understanding linking farm gate rates to international market prices going forward.
And finally, athletes at the Milano Cortina Games celebrated Valentine's weekend with their trademark Olympic intensity, using up the free supply of condoms so quickly that dispensers were empty by Valentine's Day. IOC spokesperson Mark Adams tells us more.
All I would say was that it clearly shows that Valentine's Day is in full swing in the village, and I don't think I can add very much more to that. As you say, it is Rule 62 of the Olympic Charter that we have to have a condom story, but I think 10,000 have been used, so 2,800 athletes. You can go figure, as they say.
I already know that a lot of people are using some condoms, or maybe just taking them to give to their friends out of the Olympics, because it's a kind of gift for them.
And that's how we come to the end of this Monday's edition of the Africa Roundup. We'll do this again tomorrow after the 6 a.m. news on Rise and Shine. To come up, we zoom into some of the stories touched here, as well as others that one can expect to develop in this new week. And on Mondays, we speak to our regular analyst, Mighty Jamie. So he'll be in conversation today with our colleague Peter Ndoro. Stay tuned for that.
Africa, meet Abedi.
Yeah, that's me.
Abedi is a music lover through and through.
I really love African music.
He's got a taste for all kinds of tunes and spends his days listening to Channel Africa. Guess what? He didn't know.
Okay.
Channel Africa wants to help Abedi and all music lovers everywhere to discover even more incredible music. That is why Channel Africa is calling on all African musicians to submit their music. Musicians, remember to give us all your relevant information. Make your submissions at music@channelafrica.co.za. Submissions are your chance to be heard on radio. But sadly, they do not guarantee that you'll be playlisted. All submissions will be carefully reviewed to see if they meet our station's requirement. Channel Africa, the African perspective. The voice of the continent, now online, with all your sport fixtures, lifestyle, and more. Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
Every Monday at this time, we have a date with Mighty Jamie because he makes sense for us of the stories of the week that's just gone, and sometimes even right through into this weekend, like we're going to do today. And he joins us now. A very good morning to you, Mighty Jamie. I hope you're well.
Good morning to you, Peter. Good morning to the viewers, to the listeners. I am well. I hope you are too.
Yeah, not too bad. Restful weekend, but the AU leaders met in Ethiopia for the AU summit. I mean, there's so much going on the continent. Wars, insurgencies, coups across the continent. But one gets a sense that this was a little bit overshadowed by this spat between Saudi Arabia and the UAE in the Horn of Africa. Tell us more.
Well, it was overshadowed and also showed that the African Union is not necessarily the leading broker and change maker in Africa. Right now, we are seeing that members of the Gulf Council of States, the UAE and Saudi Arabia, have tensions and frictions over various countries in the Horn of Africa, and those are leading to continental discussions, so to speak. So as things stand right now, there's tension between the UAE and Saudi Arabia over Somalia and Somaliland. There's tension over Sudan, where the UAE and Saudi Arabia seem to be supporting different armies there, where you have the UAE linked with the Rapid Support Forces of Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, and you have Saudi Arabia linked to the Sudanese Armed Forces, which is the National Army. And these things are now spilling over into the continental leadership discussions. And over the weekend or over the last week, we saw tensions escalating between Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Part of this is as a result of what is happening in Yemen and the position that has been taken by the UAE to support the STC in ways that, which is another a kettle of fish and can of worms, which we don't have enough time to open. But it did actually lead to legitimate questions around the relevance and the authority of the African Union as this feud between Saudi Arabia and the UAE was escalating as a result of these rivalries. Right now, as we can see, there are some contestations not only for influence in Somalia and Sudan, but also in Ethiopia itself, in Eritrea and Libya. So when you think about that wide stretch of the continent, you can then see that the tensions between these two power brokers, so to speak, within that region are now affecting Africa. So now going more to just the broader AU conversation, Peter, one of the things that I think anybody would be thinking about as an African under 40 is whether or not this organization has any relevance to their lives, and maybe I would say positive relevance, because I mean, obviously it does have some institutional relevance and a history that has affected their lives. But as you were pointing out, right now, there is this war in Sudan. Young people will be thinking about the democratic recession, if you will, in countries such as Tanzania, Zimbabwe, Mozambique. Not to say that there was much democracy in Zimbabwe to begin with, but I think one of the developments, to use it as an example, is that the president of Zimbabwe is seeking to extend his term of office up until 2030, which is not in keeping with what the constitution of Zimbabwe currently allows for, and actually is it's a betrayal of the promises that were made in 2018 by him and his supporters, that he would not attempt to repeat the mistakes of Robert Mugabe, so to speak. But as we saw in Tanzania, there was oppression and repression in that particular election. And also in Uganda, we've seen the suppression and repression of political voices such as Bobby Wine, who represents for many in Uganda the hope of the country to move away from repressive and dictatorial administration. So if you're thinking as a young African looking not only at Tanzania, Uganda, Zimbabwe, but also looking at the war in Sudan, also looking looking at the extensions of terms of office by many of these African presidents, but also looking at the resurgence of coups in Africa, you may feel that the African Union, even at the peace and security level, is not doing a particularly good job. But at the economic level, you may definitely feel that they have no role to play in your economic prospects and future. And thinking about the Pan-African ideal, it does look as if the African Union is not doing much more to strengthen ties with the largest cohort of Africans living right now, who are all, not all, but in majority under the age of 40, Peter.
Yeah, speaking about Tanzania, Samia Suluhu Hassan, she showed up. She was there at this 39th summit. And I guess nobody said a word about the thousands of Tanzanians that were killed in the aftermath of the elections in her country.
Yeah, Peter, nobody said a word because I think there's a complicity in this group of elders, this gerontocracy that is currently running the continent, because a lot of the people who were there as well have blood on their hands and mud on their feet. And I think as a result of that, there's no real moral force at the African Union level right now who can try to escalate these issues or problematize these issues. And so she would have been in a company of her peers, many of whom share her worldview and have strong relationships with her. For me, one of the most troubling pictures that I saw was President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa sitting next to Emerson Mnangagwa talking about their brotherhood. And I was like, why would you use that turn of phrase? It's not necessarily diplomatic, and it's not coming at a time where the Zimbabwean economy or the democratic dispensation is in good health. And for you to profess brotherhood as opposed to any other form of endearment or maybe diplomatic relationship, that would have been something that would have made people who know the politics of Zimbabwe very frustrated, and would have also reminded them that he took a photo quite recently also with Hamdan Dagalo, I think now almost a year and a half ago, reflecting a cognitive dissonance in terms of the morality and ethics of, Pretoria.
So I wonder how many countries are going to do this as well. Italy-Africa Summit. They've joined the party of these summits with the continent. And I just wonder, is this about critical minerals? What's going on? Everybody suddenly wants to have summits with our continent. Italy has even gone so far as to say, listen, we will even relax your or suspend your debt burden if you've been affected by climate shocks, to give you a chance to sort that out. Is Italy's plan for Africa genuine in terms of a shift towards some kind of equal investment or genuine partnership, or is this yet another country that doesn't want to miss the bandwagon?
Well, Peter, at a very skeptical and pessimist level, I think if I were any world leader recognizing the weakness of African leaders and the fact that they are disorganized and incapable really of executing any grand vision, I too would try to take advantage of that for my own nation state. And I think skeptically and pessimistically, this may very well be what the Italians are also doing, in that they're going to try to get the best deals for themselves, because they've learned from China that you can have a lot of influence for, a low amount of money in Africa. And why not join the gravy train if you can also influence and, cozy up to African leaders? A different thing, I think, with this particular phase of their plan is that they're actually trying to, meet on African soil. And that's a little bit different to all of the different summits which happen where African leaders pack their bags, jump onto planes and go to all of these other so-called global leading countries. And, and not necessarily so much so-called because they actually are, but the African leaders generally run there. And this time around, we saw the Italian leadership coming in there, Giorgia Meloni coming in to Africa, speaking to Africans in Africa. I think that was a welcome move and showed a little bit of respect there. But in terms of what could be their overall agenda, I mean, they're obviously looking for business. The other thing that they're looking at doing is maybe to help Africans stay in Africa, because we've seen that Italy is one of the countries which has been pushing back on migration and immigration, particularly from Africa. So this could be one of their ways of trying to deal with the root causes, but obviously the economics play a bigger factor. But I guess, the fact that she came to Africa is somewhat of a welcome difference.
All right, we shall have to wait and see. I don't know if you can in 30 seconds. There's a video circulating online showing soldiers in snow-covered forests singing a Ugandan song. It looks like Russian recruitment is happening as far as Uganda now. What can our continent do to protect our citizens? Because they're finding themselves on the front line fighting Ukraine.
Yeah, we have to do much better in terms of protecting our citizens, but the economic clearly very high, and this is what is making young men feel like they can have prospects fighting in a foreign war against Ukraine for Russia. It's something that we've seen even affecting South Africa, and these recruitment strategies seem as if they're expanding. Peter, it's a genuine concern. I think at this stage, African leaders have to give information to their populations around this type of operations so that everyone knows the risks and takes better care of themselves.
All right, Mighty Jamie, that's where we're going to leave it, and we'll chat to you next week. Have a good week, brother.
You too, Peter. Thank you.
All right, that's Mighty Jamie making sense of some of the stories that played out in the week that was. And one story I wish we had got to, China's zero tariff plan for African economies. Maybe we'll explore that a little bit later on in the program. Okay, it's 6:30, which means it's time for your news headlines with Matapelo Mahape. Good morning.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Headlines this hour. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has raised concern on the instability in Sudan and South Sudan at the African Union Leaders Summit in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. African leaders gathered over the weekend to discuss the peace and security on the continent. And the World Health Organization has criticized a halted hepatitis B vaccine trial in Guinea-Bissau involving thousands of newborns, labeling it unethical. The US-funded study aimed to vaccinate some babies at birth while delaying the shot for others until 6 weeks. And the European Union's foreign policy chief Kaja Kallas says members of the bloc are not ready to offer Ukraine a concrete date for membership. More details on these and other stories at top of the hour.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Let's catch you up with the world of sports now, and we get our update, the first full one for this Monday morning from Fikile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Good morning, guys. We begin with cricket news. It is the ICC T20 World Cup in India and Sri Lanka. India continued their T20 World Cup dominance of Pakistan with a thumping 61-run victory in their Group A match of the ICC T20 World Cup in Colombo in Sri Lanka, sealing the defending champions and tournament favourite sport in the Super 8 stage with 3 wins in 3 games. India have now beaten Pakistan for the 8th time in 9 games across all editions of this competition. This latest fixture between the cricketing heavyweights only took place after Pakistan reversed their decision to boycott the match, having initially said they would not play in response to the ICC's decision to remove Bangladesh from the event for refusing to travel to India. Some more cricket news. Proteas women bowler Ayabonga Kaga scooped player of the match honours in the second T20 international against Pakistan in Benoni, east of Johannesburg, to lead the team to both match and series victory. The rain-affected game at Wilmore Park was reduced to 14 overs aside, and Kaga finished with figures of 3 for 10 as they restricted the visitors to 100 for 9. She says they executed the game plan better than the first T20 in Potchefstroom and were determined to wrap up the series with a match to spare.
I think as a team today we came in, we knew what we wanted to win the series. I think we just came today and executed everything. We improved from the previous game. I think the wicket first it suited us, especially as the pace bowlers. Secondly, I think we executed better than Poch. I think we've been. Yesterday we were just as a bowling unit. We didn't even bowl to the Beda as we were bowling in the middle, trying to make sure that we come today and execute whatever that we needed to do. And today we just made that. We did that.
Chasing 101 for the win could have been awkward for South Africa, but Kaka believes the batters were mature in their second innings approach. She says they went in with the same intensity as when chasing a big score. Kaka had a new role in the bowling unit, a deviation from a usual opening spell for the Proteas women. She dismissed talk of a particular preferred role and says she'll do whatever job is required of her.
I think, to be honest, I've been bowling everywhere. I've bowled in the power play, I've bowled in the middle, but Detha was always bowling. It's not something new for me, but it's a tough job, to be honest. But I'm taking the responsibility for the team, and they want me to do that job, and I will try my best to execute and make sure that my planes are well. But yeah, if you miss, you go. It's a tough role, but yeah, I'll take it for the team.
Let's end with tennis. 2023 French Open finalist Karolina Muchova ended a 6-year trophy drought. The Czech beat Canadian teenager Victoria Mbogo 6-4, 7-5 to win the Qatar Open and clinch her first WTA 1000 title. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fikile Lungwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Get the news, music, and lifestyle of Africa on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Got something to say? Are you passionate about issues that matter? Do you have a voice that deserves to be heard? Well, we've got the perfect platform for you. Call in or drop us a WhatsApp on +27 63 406 9126. And we will call you back so you could have your say and be part of the conversation.
30 years of age. I just turned 30 on the 15th of November. So yeah, that's who I am, you know.
It's not just talk. It's your chance to air your views. Share your opinion. Engage with the community that values your perspective. Follow us on our social media. Visit our website at www.channelafrica.co.za and get ready to share your views on Channel Africa, the African Perspective. From Cape to Cairo, Dakar to Dar es Salaam, rise and shine with Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda on Channel Africa.
Yep, rise and shine. That's what you're listening to right now. And it's time to find out what's happening in the world of business, economics, and commerce. And at the business desk this morning, we say good morning to you, Nosipo Zuma.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. In your business news this hour, Agri South Africa says that declaring the foot and mouth disease outbreak a national disaster is government's acknowledgement of its profound implications. Now, President Cyril Ramaphosa announced a declaration and a nationwide vaccination drive in the 2026 State of the Nation address on Thursday. Agri SA says the outbreak has serious economic and food security implications. CEO Johan Kotze highlights the importance of vaccines.
There's no chance that we would be able to manufacture specifically for the outbreaks that we have. We need to solve the issue as is. And for that, you need to have outside vaccines coming into South Africa. You need to centralize it purely for the sake of being able to have the same kind of framework throughout all the provinces itself. And the next thing is you need to bring in private vets, private people to help and assist with the outbreaks and help and assist with the vaccinations.
Youth Skills, a non-profit organization, Africa Tikkun, has warned that nearly 5 million young South Africans are at risk of becoming economically invisible. Now, this as some matriculants and graduates give up on job hunting after months of not getting responses from employers. The organization has called for partnerships between government, business and civil society to create opportunities. Chief Operations Officer Tian Mohlaba has emphasized the importance of workplace readiness training and real work experience to equip young people with needed skills.
We don't have a youth unemployment problem per se. It's a partnership gap, right? So, and the solution for us, based on the experience, is collaboration between government, business, and the civil society. And most importantly, parents, you and I as mentors, as coaches of these young people, we need to make them aware that a job is a first start. We can't be choosy, we've got opportunities in business process outsourcing, which we call call centers, ICT, agriculture, which young people can basically access. So they must go out, polish their CVs.
Mali's government has approved a draft decree renewing Barrick Mining Lulo Gold mining permit for an additional 10 years. Mali, one of Africa's leading gold producers, resolved a dispute in November with Barrick over profit sharing and control of Lulo Gongoto gold mining complex after 2 years of negotiations sparked by a 2023 mining code that raised taxes and increased the stake in projects. Barrick agreed to withdraw its arbitration case at the World Bank's dispute tribunal, while Mali said it would drop all charges against the Canadian miner and its affiliates, release the company's employees, and return operational control of the complex to the Canadian miner. China will implement zero tariff treatment for imports from the 53 African countries with which it has diplomatic relations starting May on the 1st or 2026. It is reported that China will also continue to push for the negotiation and signing of joint economic partnership pacts and further expand market access for African exports to China through upgraded mechanisms such as its Green Channel. An annual cigar festival in Cuban capital Havana has become the latest casualties of a fuel shortage caused by a U.S. oil blockade. The organizing committee of the festival, Del Habana, announced on Saturday that this year's event, which was due to take place over 5 days in late February, will be postponed until further notice. The committee says the decision is motivated by the complex economic situation facing Cuba due to the economic, commercial and financial blockade by the U.S. A fuel shortage causing power cuts on the Caribbean island has been worsened by the U.S. seizing oil shipments from Cuba's long-standing ally, Venezuela. Your financial indicators: $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 352, and Botswana is 13.06. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 447, and in Zambia it's 18 kwacha 122. The BRICS countries: $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 22. Russia is 76 rubles 62. India is 90 rupees 44, China at 6 yuan 90, and in South Africa $1 is trading at 15 rand 92. $1 is trading at 73 pence to the British pound and 84 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $4,994 and platinum at $2,053 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $67.81 a barrel. Now, for any stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Nosipho Zuma.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
The two-day Students Working to Empower African Talent or Sweat Africa event is taking place at the Bertha Retreat, located between Stellenbosch and Franschhoek in the Western Cape province of South Africa. The aim of the event is to bring together investors, founders, entrepreneurs and young startup owners to work together in contributing to the development of Africa. The event has also attracted some of the top universities in South Africa to partake in the event. Sisi Sikhalo is attending the event and has more on the story.
It was an event packed with activities aimed at building new companies of the future for Africa, from the discussions about investing in deep tech in Africa to pitching picnics, competition and many more. The turnout was more than what the organizers bargained for. One of the organizers of the event, Maambele Khoza, elaborates.
Initially, we were hoping to have at least 250 people, with just 10% of those people being students, ecosystem builders, researchers, startup founders, investors. However, as time went by, we realized the demand is quite high. We aimed for 300. In short, between yesterday and today, we have 460 people on site. So that already talks about the demand for such an ecosystem or a platform for people to meet, to network, to connect, and of course to ensure that they can share resources. I mean, we are Africans, and if one has the potential to invest while the other have the skill set to receive investment and make an impact in the community, that's what we wanted to achieve.
Even though the festival was representative of the African continent, the organizers would like more partners to come on board to be able to reach out to more African innovators. Khoza further explains.
We already have like an online community where people can also join, where we share resources, we share opportunities, we connect, we share the tips, meaning the gathering is only a matter of, okay, we are here together, we're celebrating the spirit of Africa, we are learning from each other, but there are multiple ways in which we stay connected to ensure that we reach even those that we cannot necessarily reach because of resource limitations. But we are grateful for our partners and collaborators who have made Sweat Africa 2026 possible through the generosity of whatever they have put in to make this happen.
Pierre van Merwe from South Africa and Bukhadi Litzile from Botswana made it to the top 10 of biotech and hard tech pitching competition.
My company is La Grace Bio, and we take the biggest agricultural waste in the world, which is 100 million tons of rinds and seeds of the watermelon, because 30% of the watermelon is actually the outside rind that gets thrown away. So we use that waste to make medical products, cosmetic products, and food.
I'm the founder and CEO of Nanopula is a startup that is building itself up to become a lever of sustainable industrial transformation. And we do this by developing an advanced mineral recovery platform from biomass that helps or targets low concentration minerals from ores, and therefore helping full recovery or maximized recovery of critical energy minerals from our existing resources.
Dominic Rocher from Urubu Biotech was announced the winner of the competition and walked away with $6,269. She lauded the competition as embodying the spirit of innovation and endurance. She shares what they do and their plans for the prize money.
So we develop enzyme-based technologies that helps waste management companies break down bioplastics in various different waste streams and then convert them into something valuable like biogas or circular chemicals. And instead of sending these materials to landfill or incineration, we turn them into new resources. This reduces costs and also cuts emissions while also creating new revenue streams. As for the prize funding, it comes at a pivotal moment for us as we prepare for our first commercial sales this year. The support will help us transition our current pilots into revenue-generating sales, building local technical capacity, and also strengthening the South Africa's growing biotech ecosystem.
For Channel Africa, I'm Sisi Sikhalo at Bertha Retreat, located between Stellenbosch and Franschhoek in South Africa.
The impact of global funding cuts on HIV programs is under the spotlight as health advocates warn that the vulnerable communities are bearing the brunt of reduced support. Now, the French Institute of South Africa hosted a panel discussion examining the effects of the 2025 withdrawal of HIV funding, particularly on at-risk and LGBTQIA and communities. Our reporter Lebahang Mabange attended the briefing and filed this report.
1 year after major cuts to international HIV funding, organizations working on prevention and treatment say the consequences are already being felt on the ground. Jean Spiri, director of the French Institute of South Africa and vice president of the French HIV prevention group CRISP, says the reduction in funding has had measurable global effects.
The cuts in the US budget of cooperation has very concrete consequences in 1 year. And it's very impressive because, for example, in 1 year, there is 2.5 million of people who took PrEP before and have no more access. 2.5 million. You have also a decrease on the condom distribution. It's minus 35%. Burundi, it's 64% of people who was on PrEP that are not today. In Ghana, it's a reduction for the volume of pregnant women who have pills. So there is an increase in the transmission between mother and child.
Local organizations say the disruption has forced them into crisis response mode as they try to ensure continuity of care. Lunga Sitole, a linkage officer at Out LGBT Wellbeing, says thousands of people in Johannesburg were directly affected.
We have been doing a whole lot of damage control since last year up until now, because in actual fact, in the whole COJ, Johannesburg, we had about 13,000 people on PrEP, we had about 6,000 people on ARVs. Imagine letting those people go without proper explanation and, a plan B for them. So what they knew was someone is coming to render me all my services from the comfortability of my home. Imagine cutting all of that and no one's there to explain.
Media platforms and community networks also struggled to respond as uncertainty left many without clear information on where to access services. Louis de Barros, creator of South Africa's longest-running LGBTQ news and lifestyle platform, says the sudden halt in programs created widespread confusion.
We actually did, even within the organizations, we didn't know what was happening. We were simply told to stop. We had no idea of what would happen next. So it was really frustrating because, we were getting emails from people asking us questions. Where can I get services? Where can I get PrEP? Where can I get condoms? And, we didn't know the answer to that. So it was, as a communicator, it was an incredibly frustrating time. We literally were not even for a period allowed to man our phones and answer calls from people or reply to emails.
Panelists emphasize the urgent need for sustainable funding and coordinated responses to prevent setbacks in the fight against HIV. They warn that without renewed support, gains made in prevention and treatment, especially among vulnerable communities, could be reserved. Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Lebogang Mabange in Johannesburg, South Africa.
All right, and do get in touch with us on Rise and Shine at Channel Africa 1 is our handle. That's where we are on the various social media platforms of Facebook, of X, of Instagram, of TikTok, and LinkedIn.
Get the news, music, and lifestyle of Africa on Channel Africa, the African perspective. The Morning Switch Weekend with the Shy Guy.
I Show Speed, often called Speed, who is a popular American YouTuber and live streamer known for his high-energy personality, loud reactions, and unpredictable humor. He visited Ethiopia, and he was shocked what he found out actually when he got to Ethiopia. He got to find out that, they don't use the Gregorian calendar. That is, we are in 2026 right now. And he got to find out they are in 2018.
2018? 2018. Nah, you trolling me. No. It's 2026. No. It ain't 2026. Wait, hold on. Wait, we in the past? Ronaldo is still in Real Madrid. Everything is in the past here.
Oh man, how shocked the Speed was. He went back in time.
Saturday and Sunday mornings belong to the Morning Switch. 3 to 6 a.m. Central African Time. Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
Geographical name changes remain one of the most debated issues in South Africa, often stirring strong views around heritage, identity, and historical recognition. Sport, Arts and Culture Minister Gayton McKenzie has approved 21 geographical name changes, including the renaming of East London to Gompo City, while Graaff-Reinet has been renamed Robert Sobukwe Town. The changes are expected to be gazetted in the coming weeks. However, South Africa's Deputy Minister of Energy, Samantha Jane Graham-Murray, has told Channel Africa in an exclusive interview that the process leading up to the gazetting was flawed and lacked proper public consultation.
Minister, the name change of your local town, you said you're not happy about it. Why is that?
So on last Friday, Minister Gayton McKenzie gazetted the name changes of 21 towns across the country. 3 of the towns in my constituency where I live are affected. That's Graaff-Reinet, Aberdeen and Ardendorp, as well as 2 other areas within the Eastern Cape, East London and Berkeley East. The others are all in KZN. So one of the issues that we have is that the public participation in this process has been absolutely appalling. Although they've held public participation meetings, they refused to take a vote. They didn't allow people to have the opportunity to either demonstrate whether they're supported or opposed. So we feel that you can't go into a process and then say that you're speaking on behalf of a community, but you haven't taken the numbers of the community that support it. The decision that has been taken has been imposed on us, and as a community, we are going to stand up against this. But we feel very strongly that the laws that surround the name changes are very poorly designed, and that until they've done the amendment, which they're busy with, they should absolutely abstain from doing any more name changes to ensure that the procedural element of this name change process is corrected, and that we are subjected to proper public participation as our participative democracy allows for.
What's the next step? What are you going to do then? Where to from here?
So with the gazetting of the name changes, which also the Gazette is actually flawed because nowhere in the Gazette does it allow for objections, although the Act stipulates that we should have the opportunity to object within 30 days to the Minister. The Gazette doesn't highlight that in any way. So that's already a massive flaw in the Gazette. But so we've embarked on an objection process. We are assisting people to object. We've already got about 10,000 objections since we started the process on Saturday. So we will take it to that point. Then based on the outcome of the objection process, then we might have to, if the government continues to ignore the voice of the people.
Why is the old name important to you? Is it the history that it carries, Minister?
Yeah, at the end of the day, Graaff-Reinet is the 4th oldest town in the country. It does carry a huge cultural significance. It's also, for us, it's a tourism town. It's the second biggest economy, aside from agriculture, is tourism in Graaff-Reinet. People are going to lose their livelihoods as a result of this. If you look at any of the towns that have had their name changes, tell me whether or not those towns are better off or worse off than they were before the name changes happened. We honestly believe that this is a waste of time, it's a waste of money, it's a waste of energy. There's nothing offensive about the name Graaff-Reinet. It's owned by the community, and people feel very strongly pulled towards the town itself. And we feel that we haven't been properly consulted. We weren't given an opportunity to really propose alternatives or to come up with new ideas. So we honestly do believe that this entire process has been flawed. And the people in every single meeting that was held have demonstrated that they do not want the name to change. It's meaningful. It's part of the culture of the town, and we don't believe that this is the way to do redress. There are other ways to do redress, ways that actually uplift and change people's lives. This is not one of them.
Minister, for your time, I thank you.
Thank you.
That was South Africa's. 6:57. I mean, it's time to go to the news. Top of the hour. In fact, let's take a look at this story in the meantime. International humanitarian organization Save the Children is urging armed groups in the Democratic Republic of Congo to immediately end the recruitment and the use of children in conflict. Authorities say that more than 13,000 children recruited last year are being held by armed factions in the mineral-rich Ituri province, a region that's long plagued by instability. Chris Ochamringa has more from Kinshasa.
The forceful recruitment of children into armed groups is widespread in conflict-torn provinces of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Some children voluntarily join the armed groups after witnessing rival militiamen kill their parents. According to Congolese authorities, more than 13,000 children were recruited into various armed groups in Ituri province last year. Slightly more than 1,300 of them have been released. Many of them gave horrific accounts of how they were abducted, drugged, and forced to carry out acts of violence. Save the Children has called for an urgent end to the recruitment of children and the release of all those still in the rebels' custody. Child soldiers have been deprived of their right to an education and exposed to physical and emotional trauma. In 2009, the DRC government enacted a law which made recruiting and using children in armed groups illegal. However, the long-running conflict in eastern DRC has led to a breakdown of law and order, giving warlords free rein to continue their horrific acts. Some rebel leaders prefer recruiting children because they are easier to indoctrinate than adults. The government says it will continue working with the United Nations to stop the recruitment of child soldiers and hold perpetrators accountable. Chris Ochamringa, SABC News, Kinshasa.
It's time for the second hour of Rise and Shine with Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda. But first, here's your news at 7 o'clock with Matapelo Mahape.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter, and good morning. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has raised concern on the instability in Sudan and South Sudan at the African Union Leaders Summit in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. African leaders gathered over the weekend to discuss peace and security on the continent. Ramaphosa has called on AU member states to help other countries, or African countries rather, that are facing political and security crisis.
As we meet here, a number of African countries are currently under suspension from our union due to unconstitutional changes of government, thus reversing the democratic gains and development of our continent. The slow transition to constitutional order by the suspended countries is a matter of concern.
And Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed says his country has taken drastic measures to address water shortages. He was addressing the African Union Leaders Summit in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. Ahmed says no country can function without water.
Water is more than a resource. It is a foundation of development, innovation, and stability. It shapes our cities, our farms, our health, and our peace. Here in Ethiopia, we have learned that responsible water management is central to guiding development wisely. The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam now powers homes and industry, exports electricity to neighboring countries.
And South Africa's former President Thabo Mbeki has filed papers in the High Court in Johannesburg to join former President Jacob Zuma's review application to challenge Justice Sisi Kampembe's refusal to recuse herself as chairperson of the TRC inquiry. Amongst the reasons advanced, Mbeki says Kampembe applied a subjective and not an objective standard on the issue of bias. Mbeki also seeks an order that President Cyril Ramaphosa terminates Kampembe's appointment as well as declare all the Commission's decisions, proceedings and acts that involved her null and void. And the World Health Organization WHO has criticized a now halted plan to run a hepatitis B vaccine trial involving thousands of newborns in Guinea-Bissau, calling it unethical. The US-funded study had sought to give one set of babies the vaccine at birth, while another would have had the shot delayed until 6 weeks of age. The WHO says it is concerned about the plan and described the birth dose vaccine as an effective and essential public health intervention with a proven record. And the European Union's foreign policy chief Kaja Kallas says members of the bloc are not ready to offer Ukraine a concrete date for membership. Kallas told a panel at the Munich Security Conference that a lot of work still had to be done to show that Ukraine is part of Europe. She added that Russia had to be forced to make concessions to end the war in Ukraine.
The greatest threat Russia presents right now is that it gains more at the negotiation table than it has achieved on the battlefield. And on the topic of negotiations, what matters more than having a seat at the table is knowing what to ask when you are sitting there. How I see it is very simple. Russia's maximalist demands cannot be met with minimalist response.
For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I am Matabela Mahape.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In our sports headline, Miguel Cardoso sees MC Alger triumph as a statement victory. And India crushed Pakistan by 61 runs to reach the T20 World Cup Super 8. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
From Africa's broadcast capital to the furthest corners of the globe, this is Rise and Shine. Every weekday mornings on Channel Africa.
It is the second hour of Rise and Shine that we enter into now. A very good morning to you if you've just joined us. If you stayed with us, thanks for doing that as well. We are Channel Africa, broadcasting live from South Africa in Johannesburg. That's where our studios are. And you can connect with us on www.channelafrica.co.za, on the SABC Plus app via mobile phone, as well as on DSTV Audio Bouquet, channel number 802. My name is Asanda Beda, and I'm with my colleague, Peter Ndoro.
Hello, Asanda Beda.
Hello, welcome to the second hour.
Did you nearly forget my name for a brief second there?
You know what, on Monday we're buffering on some things there.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. So for sure, welcome to the second hour of the program. A bit sad, some of the stories that we're looking at. South Sudan, I mean, this is a country that has so many problems. Internal divisions, civil war, some might even say, and general political upheaval. And on top of that, the country is now facing its worst ever cholera outbreak. We'll be unpacking that with the WHO this hour.
Also, we speak about a renewed memorandum of understanding. This reached between the African Union and the Symposium of Episcopal Conferences of Africa and Madagascar, or SECAM. This is for cooperation on human rights, on good governance and integral human development. We'll be discussing what this partnership means with Reverend Louison Emerick Basila Mbila, who's a representative of SECAM. Those stories and more, of course, coming up. To get in touch with us at Channel Africa 1, that is our social media handle across the various platforms.
Get the news, music, and lifestyle of Africa on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Este é o Caleidoscópio de Canal África, com Remo Samo e João Yabalá.
A situação do ativista angolano Serrote José de Oliveira, preso desde julho, tem gerado grande preocupação internacional. Conhecido como General Nila e presidente do movimento União Nacional para a Total Revolução de Angola, Serrote iniciou uma greve de fome em protesto contra a sua prisão, que considera arbitrária. De acordo com a Amnistia Internacional, o estado de saúde do ativista está a deteriorar-se rapidamente devido à falta de acesso a cuidados médicos adequados. Para discutir o impacto deste caso e o estado da liberdade política em Angola, vamos conversar com Dito Dale, ativista e defensor dos direitos humanos.
Nós estamos diante de uma clara estratégia de aniquilar o jovem, porque quando uma pessoa está doente, deve ser assistida. Ao não proporcionar esses cuidados médicos, o que é que o regime quer? Não quer que esse jovem saia livre e com vida da prisão, quer matá-lo.
De segunda a sexta-feira, das 20 às 21 horas locais, este é o Caleidoscópio do Canal África.
Je, una jambo lolote akilini mwako? Je, una shauku kuhusu maswala muhimu? Na je, una maoni ambayo unataka yasikike? Kweli, hili jukwaa ni la kwako. Piga simu au tuandikie kwenda WhatsApp namba alama ya kujumulisha 2760552594 na tutakupigia simu.
Mtangazaji wa habari zetu za Afrika Kusini mjini Johannesburg.
Hivyo unaweza kuwa mshirika kwenye matangazo yetu. Sio mazungumzo tu, ni fursa yako ya kuchangia maoni yako na kushirikiana na jumuiya ya wasikilizaji wanaotamani mtazamo wako. Tufuate kwenye mitandao ya kijamii. Tembelea tovuti yetu www.channelafrica.co.za na uwe tayari kushiriki na kuchangia maoni yako kwenye Channel Africa. Channel Africa, mtazamo wa Kiafrika.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
At 9 minutes past 7 Central African Time, we take a look at this story. Africa facing many challenges, and these ranging from conflicts and humanitarian crises to governance issues and climate change. Regional and faith-based institutions are increasingly working together to address these challenges and promote peace, democracy, and sustainable development across the continent. One such effort is the renewed Memorandum of Understanding between the African Union and the Symposium of Episcopal Conferences of Africa and Madagascar, or SECAM, aimed at strengthening cooperation on human rights, good governance, and integral human development. To discuss what this partnership means in practice, we're joined by Reverend Lucian Emerick Basila Mbila, who is SECAM's liaison officer at the African Union in Addis Ababa. Father Basila Mbila, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Thank you very much, Channel Africa. I'm very fine, and thank you for pronouncing my name correctly.
Thanks. All right, great. I'm glad we did. Father, let's start here. Can you explain what this renewed MOU or Memorandum of Understanding between the African Union and the Church's role in promoting peace and development across Africa in terms of what that means?
First of all, the term renewed, it means that there was one before. And on the 19th of August 2015, SECAM had already signed a MOU with the African Union through the then Department of Political Affairs. But because that MOU was not time-framed, it was kind of open-ended, the AU had to come back to us and tell us to renew that one because there was a new format which all the partners has to follow. So that is why, after so many months of hard work, we now came up with this new format. And the MOU is simply Memorandum of Understanding in terms of we want to partner with the AU just as the AU wants to partner with us, because we realize that we are doing a lot of things But by ourselves, without other partners, we cannot go far. Just like the African Union realizes that it cannot just reduce itself to an institution of technocrats, diplomats, and experts. They also need the civil society and especially faith-based organizations. That's why they accepted to work with us together. So the MOU was signed on the 13th of February. On the SECAM side, we had His Eminence, Fridolin Cardinal Ambongo Besugu, the Archbishop of Kinshasa and President of SECAM, who signed on behalf of the Church in Africa. And on behalf of the African Union, we had Ambassador Bankole Adewoye, the Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security.
In practical terms, how will this agreement help to promote peace, to promote reconciliation and social cohesion, especially in regions that are currently experiencing conflict?
In regions that are currently experiencing conflicts, there are already existing mechanisms of the African Union, such as the Panel of the Wise or Panel of the Elders. So SECAM will be encouraged to join such panels, and especially when it comes to visiting areas affected by conflict, because we have very capable bishops who are well-trained, well-versed in issues of social justice, so they can also offer their contributions to what the AU is doing. And in a certain sense, things are already being done. If we look at what is being done at the Democratic Republic of Congo, the bishops are very much involved in peace building, not just in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, but also in the whole Great Lake regions. So it is a way to so this MOU means practically that it will not just be done at the informal level, but formally, the bishop and the experts will be able to join what the African Union is doing, and the African Union can also rely on us in terms of early warning systems, in terms of also of what we can help, what we can bring on the table to address the challenges facing our continent.
Are there specific actions or initiatives that the vulnerable communities and displaced people can expect through this collaboration between SECAM and AU?
Oh, yes, yes. In a practical terms is that the church has a lot of networks. The church has been doing a lot of initiatives on the ground, whether it be by people affected with consequences of climate change or people displaced by war or forced migration. So we have our network of Caritas and other church initiatives, other church mechanism. So this time around, we'll be able to share what we are doing to the AU, and the AU also will be able to share what they are doing with us. So we have planned also to have joint projects and capacity building together. So it is something very hopeful indeed.
So the MOU, Father, also mentions climate change and sustainable development. Can you share how SECAM plans to be involved and what projects or programs might be launched?
For instance, on the issue of climate change, SECAM has joined with other churches of the Global South, and we were very much involved in COP 30 in Belém, Brazil. So we decided to unite our efforts, not just with not to remain at the level of the Catholic Church in Africa alone, but also with the Episcopal conferences in Latin America and even in Asia. So we went to Belém, we participated in COP 30, and now that the COP 32 is coming to Ethiopia next year, so we have decided to work together, to team up, and then to come out with proposals, with contributions that can help mitigate the effects of climate change in Africa, because we know that we are not the polluters number one, and yet we are the hard-hit people. And on our own like that, it cannot work. So that is why we have already started the preparation to COP32 with our African Union partners and the other partners in the Global South, so as to come up with very concrete proposals that will impact the peoples positively.
Right, so let's look ahead now. How would you say this partnership fits within the Africa Agenda 2063?
The good thing with Africa Agenda 2063 is just the realization that African Union by itself cannot solve all the problems. That was the criticism that was labeled against the OAU, because people used to say that the OAU was like a club of head of states and then not paying much attention to the civil society. But with the constitutive acts of the African Union and now Agenda 2063, we have many areas of cooperation. I can just single out the migration issue and human trafficking. So in the level of the Catholic Church, we have networks such as Talita Kum in East Africa. They are working to redeem people who have been victims of human trafficking across the globe. And the African Union already has some mechanism for that. So what we are going to do is to work together. But we also know that we cannot achieve the orientation of Africa's Agenda 2063 without peace, without reconciliation. So SECAM is coming with its expertise on the ground. We are on the ground. We are all on all the corners of Africa. So we want to share what we are doing, and we also want to share information, because we cannot achieve peace if we don't have credible information. The church has networks from a grassroots to a continental Episcopal Conference, which we want to share with the African Union so that's to help them take better decisions for the continent. So we are partners. We are going to help them just like they are going to help us, because by ourselves or by themselves, they cannot do it. We cannot achieve it alone.
Thank you so much, Father, again for your time. We'll leave that conversation there for now, and we appreciate the work you do as SECAM.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks. That's Reverend Louison Emmerich Basila Mbila, SECAM Liaison Officer at the African Union in Addis Ababa. SECAM is the Symposium of Episcopal Conferences of Africa and Madagascar.
Download the SABC app and take Channel Africa with you everywhere you go. We are on OpenView's audio bouquet. Channel 628. Across Africa, communities rise with the promise of clean water and clean sanitation. The African Union's 2026 theme calls us to action.
It's about mobilizing real commitments, securing climate-resilient water and sanitation projects, and ensuring that water becomes a driver of sustainable development and prosperity across the continent.
A landmark moment, not only for Africa, but for the global movement for access to safe water for all.
Assuring sustainable water availability for every home, every village, every nation. This is the Africa we want.
Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Africa at Play with Neto and ETO Chemane.
Lelintle, talk to us about your relationship with your father, Coach Pitso. What is this one thing that he said to you that is still stuck at the top of your head?
Coach Pitso and our mom, Moira Kakale, have always told us that whatever we do in life, we must do it to the best of our abilities and represent our family well. But the big thing is do what you love and do it with all the passion that you have. And I think we see it in both their work. I mean, my mom has done a really good job with placing Coach Pitso in different clubs around the world, and she's negotiated contracts, and she's showing that as a woman, you can also do work that is seen, and you can also get respect from men in a male-dominated space. And I think my dad has also shown that, you must never underestimate the Black African man.
Lelintle Musimane, a South African communications and digital media professional. Lelintle is also a daughter to a great mentor when it comes to the game of football, Coach Jingles Musimane.
Live every Saturday and Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
Right, let's take a look at that story that I talked about that takes us to South Sudan. And that's a country that's emerging from what's been described as the largest and the longest cholera outbreak since independence in 2011. A crisis that's exposed the deep vulnerability and fragile health systems facing in the midst of conflict. It is a difficult scenario, displacement and climate shocks. On top of that, now the outbreak, which began in 2024, spread across more than 50 countries at its peak, but a sustained response by South Sudan's Ministry of Health, the World Health Organization, and partners have significantly reduced new infections, narrowed geographic spread, and delivered millions of oral cholera vaccine doses. The WHO says tens of thousands of deaths may have been prevented through rapid intervention. To help us understand and assess things on the ground, we're now joined by Dr. Agre Batagereza, who's Emergency Preparedness and Response Team Lead with the World Health Organization in South Sudan. Thank you very much indeed for joining us and welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let's talk a little bit about what's going on here. At its peak, this outbreak affected more than 50 countries. Where does the situation stand today, and particularly in South Sudan?
Thank you. As you rightly say, that this has been the largest and the longest cholera outbreak since independence of South Sudan. It started, as you mentioned, back in 2024, end of 2024, as the result of imported cases from Sudan. And we know what is happening currently in Sudan. Now, with these returnees, refugees coming, and they were spreading all over South Sudan, and that's why it became the largest, because different individuals went in different areas. Now, in South Sudan, there is cholera, first of all, yes, it's a disease. However, it is a developmental issue. So there is a challenges of water, safe water. There's a challenges of sanitation that includes toilets. So with increased number of refugees, increased number of displaced population makes the situation worse. So despite being largest and longest, Ministry of Health, WHO, and partners have done extremely well, because currently we are talking around 98,000 cases. But these 98,000 cases have been, and it went into all 50 plus states, and but now it has been shrunk into only 7 counties. And despite going through being the largest, at one time we used to receive 1,000 cases a week, but now we are receiving less than 100 cases a week. And case fatality rate, the people who died because of cholera in the health facility are less than 0.8, which is quite a significant and one can say a success story, because a benchmark should be less than 1%. So you can see in South Sudan, despite all the challenges, case fatality were maintained at low level. And through different interventions, which were instituted, as I said, Ministry of Health, technically guided by WHO, and implemented by different partners on the ground.
I think you may have partly answered my next question. Cholera is preventable and treatable. Why then would this outbreak become so widespread in the first place? And could it happen again?
Yes, as cholera is very preventable. If you have safe water, if you have everyone is using a latrine or toilet appropriately, If everyone washes hand at the 5 critical times, one of it after using latrine or before eating or after attending to patients, yes, cholera will be prevented. And by the way, to get cholera means you have ingested or swallowed quite a big number of these microbes. By ingestion of little amount of microbes, you won't get cholera, but you must have ingested a lot of microbes in order to get cholera. So in South Sudan, as I mentioned, it is still a very fertile ground for cholera multiplication and cholera going everywhere and more people infected because of the things I said. There's a challenge in safe water, there's a challenge in latrine, and there is a challenge in health services. But in addition to that, there's that high displaced population number because of different reasons, climatic conditions, conflict, and within the country, and conflict from outside the country, and other reasons that have made people being displaced forcibly. So to control it in such a situation, normally the quickest bullet we have is to ensure oral cholera vaccination. You just give oral cholera vaccination, you are well protected within 7 days of ingestion of that. And that is what protected majority of people, also reduced the number of people who died because of cholera. But once you have provided adequate vaccination, people are protected maximally only 3 years. Why 3 years? You can use these 3 years to correct issues, as I mentioned, like water issues, I mentioned of sanitation, as it buys you time, but it does not stop if these other areas are not addressed.
I'm curious about access. Were you able to reach all areas? Usually in the middle of conflict, getting to some people is quite difficult. And if you can't get access to them, does that mean that transmission lingers? There's a risk for lingering transmission of cholera?
You're very right. If you cannot, as we said, cholera is very easily treatable disease. However, again, if not treated, it can kill and kill very fast. Luckily for South Sudan, during the time 2024 coming to up to the end of 2025, there was an element of calmness. Conflict, we were able to have access in majority of the areas. And we were almost wiping out cholera completely here in South Sudan. We had just reached a tail, and we knew within a short time we were going completely to wipe out cholera. However, now, with the starting of a conflict, beginning of this early 2026, yes, we have seen cases rising, right. And then we have challenges of access in pockets of areas within South Sudan. UN and partners, we are seriously negotiating with the factions that are fighting to ensure that health care is given priority, is given access, and humanitarian have access, right. Safe passage, and able to provide services closest to the affected population.
All right, Dr. Beda Gereza, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for giving us that update on the situation in South Sudan, and good news that you're on top of this situation and have stemmed the tide. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much for having me. Wish you a good day.
That was Dr. Beda Gereza, who's Emergency Preparedness and Response Team Lead in South Sudan. It's 7:30. Here are news headlines with Matapelo Mahape.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Headlines this hour. Malawi has launched a vaccination program in Blantyre after detecting a derived poliovirus in sewage focused on children under the ages of 5 and 8 in 8 districts. The campaign aims to address their vulnerability. And South Africa's Minister of International Relations, Ronald Lamola, says peace, regional stability and sustainable development remain critical priorities for the African continent. And relatives of detainees under the state of emergency in El Salvador have protested against the mass trials planned by government of President Nayib Bukele. More details on these and other stories at top of the hour.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Let's catch you up now with what's happening in the world of sports as we say good morning to Fikile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
First up, it's football news. Mamelodi Sundowns, the Brazilians, as they are affectionately known. Coach Miguel Cardoso believes their win over MC Alger underlined the team's capacity to rise above adversity. The Brazilians registered a commanding 2-0 victory over Rulani Mugwena's Chargers at Loftus Versfeld in Pretoria, which guaranteed their spot in the CAF Champions League quarterfinals for an 8th successive campaign. Cardoso has faced intense scrutiny this season with doubts over Downs' capabilities to retain their Betway Premiership crown while mounting a serious continental title challenge. But the Portuguese mentor insists their win sends a clear message to the skeptics. Cardoso says he thinks that there was a lot of analysis of the pressure that was on their side, but sometimes the pressure of having to win is not smaller than the pressure of not being able to lose. For cricket news, India continued the T20 World Cup dominance of Pakistan with a thumping 61-run victory in the Group A match of the ICC T20 World Cup in Colombo in Sri Lanka, sealing the defending champions and tournament's favourite sport in the Super 8 stage with 3 wins in 3 games. India have now beaten Pakistan for the 8th time in 9 games across all editions of the competition. This latest fixture between the cricketing heavyweights only took place after Pakistan reversed their decision to boycott the match, having initially said they would not play in response to the ICC's decision to remove Bangladesh from the event for refusing to travel to India. Proteas women bowler Ayabonga Kaka scooped player of the match honours in the second T20 International against Pakistan in Benoni to lead the team to both match and series victory. The rain-affected game at Wilmore Park after reduced to 14 overs a side, and Kaka finished with figures of 3 for 10 as they restricted the visitors to 100 for 9. She says they executed the game plan better than the first T20 in Potchefstroom and were determined to wrap up the series with a match to spare.
I think as a team today we came in, we knew what we wanted to win the series. I think we just came today and executed everything and make sure we improve from the previous game. I think the wicket first, it suited us, especially as the pace bowlers. Secondly, I think we executed better than Poch. I think yesterday we were just as a bowling unit, we didn't even bowl to the batters. We were bowling in the middle, trying to make sure that we come today and execute whatever that we needed to do. And today we just made that, we did that.
For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fikile Ngwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
So, I'm going to take you back in history today, and 1992, in fact, was something called the March of Hope in Kinshasa, in Zaire, as it was known at the time. Tens of thousands of Christians and pro-democracy activists took to the streets in a peaceful protest against the dictatorship of Mobutu Sese Seko. The march was brutally suppressed, though, by the military, resulting in dozens of deaths, known as Marche de l'Espoir, the March of Hope, and it marked a critical moment in the Congolese struggle for democratic reform. So this is a country that's been through the wars, has been through a lot, and continues to see strife. So 1992, on this day, the March of Hope, Marche de l'Espoir. Mobutu put that down, but he was eventually put down himself. Coming up, much more on Rise and Shine.
Download the SABC app and take Channel Africa with you everywhere you go. Conversations are happening, and Channel Africa is at the heart of them. We tell the African story with clarity, pride, and purpose, reaching audiences that matter to your brand. Partner with us and connect your business with listeners across borders in multiple languages and markets. For partnership opportunities, sponsorship, or sales, email us at partnership@channelafrica.co.za. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
África. Conhece o Ntivani?
Claro que sou eu.
Ntivani é o amante da música de corpo e alma.
Eu amo música africana.
Ele aprecia todos os tipos de melodias e passa os seus dias a ouvir a Channel Africa. Adivinha só, a Channel Africa quer ajudar o Ntivani e os amantes da música em todo o lado a descobrir ainda mais música incrível. Por isso, a Channel Africa está a convocar artistas africanos a submeterem as suas músicas. Músicos, lembrem-se de nos dar todas as informações relevantes no music@channelafrica.co.za. As submissões são a vossa oportunidade de ser ouvidos, mas não garantem inclusão na lista. Todas as submissões serão cuidadosamente analisadas para verificar se cumprem os requisitos da nossa estação. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
All right, it's time to find out what's happening in the world of business. And at the business desk this morning is Nosipo Zuma.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. In your business news this hour, South Africa's Minister of Agriculture, John Steenhuisen, says new legislative changes that will be made to clamp down on the current foot-and-mouth disease outbreak will deal with the handling of livestock products as well as meat and abattoir procedures. When asked if the current legislative framework is in place is adequate, especially in light of the announcements made by President Cyril Ramaphosa on Thursday, during his State of the Nation address, Steenhuisen said the new regulations will look at the handling of livestock products.
In the past, all these procedures were designed to deal with the previous policy. With any new policy, it requires new regulations and new legislation, and that is currently what we're busy with in terms of both the Animal Health Act, but also the other legislation that pertains to it. Once this is done, it will align with our plan to get South Africa to be foot and mouth free. This will be the first time in our history that we've embarked upon a mass vaccination of the entire national herd. And of course, any new policy like this would require legislative amendments, but also regulatory amendments.
The South African Social Security Agency, SASSA, says the suspension of 70,000 people from its grant payment system has saved it just over $31 million. The suspensions followed a grant review process aimed at improving the system's reliability and integrity. For the current financial year, SASSA planned to conduct 420,000 reviews. By the third quarter, it had notified just under 400,000 beneficiaries to present themselves. So far, about 240,000 of those have completed the review process. The 70,000 beneficiaries were suspended after failing to come forward. The agency spokesperson, Baseka Letsazi, says during the review process, it was discovered that some public servants were benefiting illegally from SASSA grants.
In some instances, we have a relationship with other sister departments. So if you work for a department X, we will take the file to your department and we will have to have an arrangement. You must sign an acknowledgement of debt so that you pay back the money. But in some instances, we have a pure fraud taking place. We take the file to the South African Police Services. There are many people that were arrested all over the country. Recently, others were arrested in Mpumalanga, others were arrested in Gauteng. All over the country, people who are trying to defraud SASSA in terms of identity theft and so forth.
Youth Skills, a non-profit organization, Africa Tikkun, has warned that nearly 5 million young South Africans are at risk of becoming economically invisible. This as some matriculants and graduates give up on job hunting after months of not getting responses from employers. The organization has called for partnerships between government, business and civil society to create opportunities. Chief Operations Officer Diane Mohlaba has emphasized the importance of workplace readiness training and real work experience to equip young people with needed skills.
We don't have a youth unemployment problem per se. It's a partnership gap, right? So, and the solution for us, based on the experience, is collaboration between government, business, and the civil society. And most importantly, parents, you and I as mentors, as coaches of these young people, we need to make them aware that a job is a first start. We can't be choosy, we've got opportunities in business process outsourcing, which we call call centers, ICT, agriculture, which young people can basically access. So they must go out, polish their CVs.
Mali's government has approved a draft decree renewing Barrick Mining's Lulo gold mining permit for an additional 10 years. Mali, one of Africa's leading gold producers, resolved a dispute in November with Barrick over profit sharing and control of the Lulo Gongoto gold mining complex after 2 years of negotiations sparked by a 2023 mining code that raised taxes and increased the state's stake in projects. Barrick agreed to withdraw its arbitration case at the World Bank's Dispute Tribunal, while Mali said it would drop all charges against the Canadian miner and its affiliates, release the company's employees and return operational control of the complex to the Canadian miner. And finally, China will implement zero tariff treatment for imports from the 53 African countries with which it has diplomatic relations starting May the 1st, 2026. It is reported that China will also continue to push for the negotiation and signing of joint economic partnership pacts and further expand market access for African exports to China through upgraded mechanisms such as its Green Channel. For financial indicators, $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 Naira 352 and Botswana is 13 Pula 06. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 447 and in Zambia it's 18 kwacha 122. The BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 rupee 22. Russia is 76 rubles 62. India, it's 90 rupees 44. China at 6 yuan 90, and in South Africa $1 is trading at 15 rand 92. $1 is trading at 73 pence to the British pound and 84 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $4,994 and platinum at $2,053 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $67.81 a barrel. Now, for any stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Nosi Posoma.
The General Assembly established the
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
The United Nations General Assembly has appointed an independent international scientific panel on artificial intelligence, bringing together experts to assess how AI is transforming the lives of people around the world. The Assembly confirmed a recommendation made by the UN Secretary General last week, who recommended 40 global experts from 37 countries. Now, the group was chosen for their globally recognized expertise in AI, UN Chief Antonio Guterres said that the appointment of the panel was important, a very important step to help ensure that artificial intelligence serves all of humanity. Sherwin Bryce-Pease tells us more from New York.
The General Assembly established the multidisciplinary panel in August last year with a balanced geographic representation to promote scientific understanding, with the 40 panel members serving in their personal capacities for 3-year terms. Listen to UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres.
The panel is a direct response to the mandate given by member states in the Pact for the Future to strengthen multilateral solutions for emerging technologies that are reshaping every aspect of our lives. It will be the first global, fully independent scientific body dedicated to helping close the AI knowledge gap and assess the real impacts of AI across economies and societies. And this could not be more urgent. AI is moving at the speed of light, and no country can see the full picture alone. We need shared understandings to build effective guardrails, unlock innovation for the common good, and foster cooperation.
The GA resolution establishing the panel calls for it to issue evidence-based scientific assessments, synthesizing and analyzing existing research related to the opportunities, risks, and impacts of AI, guided by principles of independence, scientific credibility, and rigor. It will be expected to provide updates of its work up to twice a year to hear views through an interactive dialogue of the plenary of the General Assembly.
All members will serve in their personal capacity, independent of any government, company, or institution. The panel will work on a fast track. Its first report will be expected in time to inform the global dialogue on AI governance in July. AI is transforming our world. The question is whether we will shape this transformation together or allow it to shape us. At a time of deep geopolitical tension and growing technological rivalry, we urgently need common ground and a practical basis for cooperation based on science and solidarity. That is what this panel can help deliver.
South Africa's Professor Marivate currently holds the APSA UP Chair of Data Science at the University of Pretoria and specializes in developing machine learning and artificial intelligence methods to extract insights from data, with a particular focus on its intersection with natural language processing. He is also the co-founder of Lelapa AI, an African startup focused on AI for Africans by Africans. The government called his appointment a source of national pride through Deputy Government spokesperson William Baloyi.
Government congratulates Professor Vukosi Marivate of the University of Pretoria on the recommendations by the United Nations Secretary General to appoint him as a member of the Independent International Scientific Panel on Artificial Intelligence. Professor Marivate's appointment is a source of national pride and positions South Africa to contribute meaningfully to shaping global AI governance. His participation further guarantees that developmental priorities of the Global South are reflected in international decision-making.
The GA resolution also encourages states as well as the private sector, financial institutions and other donors to support the effective functioning of the panel. I'm Sherwin Bryce-Pease in New York.
Coming up on Rise and Shine, we talk about a launch of Joining Forces Somalia chapter. This happened in Mogadishu. We'll find out what that joint venture or those forces that are involved in that are and what the aim of that collaboration is. Stay with us.
Download the SABC app and take Channel Africa with you everywhere you go. Conversations are happening and Channel Africa is at the heart of them. We tell the African story with clarity, pride, and purpose, reaching audiences that matter to your brand. Partner with us and connect your business with listeners across borders in multiple languages and markets. For partnership opportunities, sponsorship, or sales, email us at partnership@channelafrica.co.za. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Across Africa, communities rise with the promise of clean water and clean sanitation. The African Union's 2026 theme calls us to action.
It's about mobilizing real commitments, securing climate-resilient water and sanitation projects, and ensuring that water becomes a driver of sustainable development and prosperity across the continent.
A landmark moment, not only for Africa, but for the global movement for access to safe water for all.
Assuring sustainable water availability for every home, every village, every nation. This is the Africa we want.
Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
4 international aid agencies have joined forces to strengthen the protection of children in Somalia. Save the Children, World Vision, Plan International and SOS Children's Villages have launched the Joining Forces Somalia chapter in Mogadishu, aiming to combat violence against children and improve child protection systems amid conflict, climate shocks and limited access to essential services. To speak to us more about this, we're joined by Zara Dahir, Head of Protection, Gender and Inclusion for Save the Children in Somalia. Zara, thank you for joining us. How are you this morning?
Very well. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. What prompted Save the Children and its partners to establish this joint venture, particularly at this time?
I think particularly at this time is even more important as we speak. Joining Forces Alliance, firstly, is a global alliance of 6 organizations that were formed in 2017. So we have many alliances across many countries in Africa and the Middle East and across the world. I think we have around 30 different countries where the alliance now is active. So Somalia now in this week has launched the Somalia chapter, and it's really an opportunity for us, the 4 of the 6 organizations, like you mentioned, Save the Children, SOS, World Vision and Plan, to come together for collective action for children. Somalia faces many challenges, both, like you mentioned, in terms of conflict and crisis, children being displaced in the midst of conflict, and climate-induced shocks. So this really, promotes a lot of protection risks and limits the rights of children. So we want to collectively come together to have collective action, to galvanize our collective efforts, to ensure that we have accelerated progress towards the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals for children, to ensure their protection and their rights. And our main aim is really 2 things: the eradication of violence against children, so ending violence against children, as well as ensuring child rights are protected and promoted within the country that we work, and then linking this to the global commitments that both Joining Forces does, as well as the Sustainable Development Goals, and then UN Charter on the Rights of the Child. So it's really a part of a bigger and a broader picture for child rights, and making sure that in Somalia these are also protected and advanced.
What would you say is most urgent then in that list of the protection risks facing children in Somalia today? I think you mentioned one of them, violence.
Yes, definitely. I think for children in Somalia, they face numerous challenges. Like we mentioned, the issues around the context being very conflict-induced, climate-induced shocks, children are displaced. This means that they're more prone to many risks, and there's children who are affected by armed conflict and into recruitment, into, for example, child soldiers. We have sometimes children who are separated from their families. So working on risks that children face in terms of exploitation, abuse, neglect, and there's issues around child labor within the country, sexual and gender-based violence. We know that early marriage and child forced early marriage, as well as FGM, is quite prominent within Somalia. So these are challenges really unique to Somalia that we try to combat when we talk about the violence against children. It comes in various different forms, both within the environment as well as from the community, from the household, from negative social norms and practices that have been embedded within Somali culture for many years. So really trying to combat all of these things. We know that within times of conflict and displacement, children's education is disturbed. They're more prone to health risks. And all of these mean that children are really at risks of exploitation, abuse, and neglect within the environment they are living. So we're just trying to ensure that children have a conducive and safe environment, are protected from all forms of risks, are able to go to school safely without the worry of any protection risks on their way. And then this is in the middle of the current funding climate, where limited funding for protection as well as shrinking funding space. So just ensuring that as the four organizations, we come together and we're able to collectively work on these issues that are affecting children within Somalia.
And how will you do that as these four organizations? How will you strengthen and the child protection systems and ensure that vulnerable children are not left behind?
So a couple of things that we really want to aim to do, and we aim to do collectively together, is our work on joint advocacy for policy and legislative change. So making sure that we're advocating together and supporting the government, not just advocating against the government, but really supporting the national government to advance policies for children. There's Somalia has already signed the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. And so really making sure that there are stepping stones and roadmarks to making sure that those commitments have been achieved for children. Recently, Somalia has also signed the African Charter on the Rights and the Welfare of the Child, so making sure that we're aligned to regional commitments for children. And at the national level, we're also supporting the Somalia Child Rights Bill, work on bills around FGM and sexual offence against women and children. So all of these are really ensuring a really conducive policy space that safeguards and protects the rights of children, and making sure that the government is able to do that. We're able to advocate for that, and we're able to not making sure that they're just ratified and approved, but also implemented, and making sure that implementation strategies in place so that these rights for children are realized, as well as a system strengthening approach, making sure that we're working with communities, government, all partners to make sure that there are systems and structures in place that children can have rights, that they can seek protection. And we're supporting the government in terms of social workforce, in terms of policy change, advocacy, and amplifying the voices of children. So making sure that children are the center of the work that we do. So really it's a collective approach from community to the children that we work with, making sure that we're both advocating as well as supporting the government, and making sure that there are systems and structures in place to realize the protection of children and their rights.
Great, and that feeds into my next question, which was going to be about that collaboration in terms of the communities and children themselves coming up with solutions to their own problems while working with your alliance. Sarah, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it again here at Channel Africa.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Zara Dahir, Head of Protection, Gender and Inclusion for Save the Children in Somalia, talking to us about a memorandum of understanding that has been signed between four organizations, Save the Children, World Vision, Plan International and SOS Children's Villages. They're calling the conglomeration the Joining Forces Somalia chapter, and this to make sure that children helped against violence in terms of improving the protection systems, and also climate shocks and limited access to essential services being other points that are being touched or will be touched by that joint venture. It is Rise and Shine. We enter the third and final hour now as Channel Africa. I'm Asanda Beda with Peter Ndoro. Let's catch you up with the news from the African perspective. Here's Matapelo Mahape, 8 o'clock Central African Time.
SABC News. The African perspective.
Thank you, Asanda, and good morning. Starting off with the story, Kenyan President William Ruto says the African Continental Free Trade Area is entering a decisive phase aimed at boosting Africa's economic integration into industrialization and global trade participation. Ruto was speaking at the recently concluded 39th African Union Summit in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. He emphasized that the AFCFTA was a flagship project of Africa's 2063 that drives a structural transformation, value addition, and broad-based continental growth.
Africa today stands at an important moment in its economic journey, shaped by major demographic change, expanding regional integration, and rapid technological progress. These forces are redefining our role in global markets and creating new opportunities for investment, enterprise, and growth. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area is one of the flagship projects of Agenda 2063 and a practical expression of our shared vision of the Africa we want.
And Malawi has launched a vaccination program in Blantyre after detecting a derived poliovirus in sewage. Focused on children under 5 in 8 districts, the campaign aims to address their vulnerability. The World Health Organization, WHO, has stressed the necessity of vaccinating all children to eradicate polio, highlighting the risks posed by unvaccinated individuals. Frontline health workers are actively encouraging parents to participate, although cultural and religious beliefs present challenges in vaccinating some families. Malawi's Deputy Health Minister, Charles Chilambula, says cultural and religious beliefs still hinder some families.
There are some religions that don't believe in going to the hospital. And there are some cultures which don't believe in vaccines as well as going to the hospital. So these are some of the things that still exposes these children to these viruses, including polio.
And South Africa's Minister of International Relations, Ronald Lamola, says peace, regional stability and sustainable development remain critical priorities for the African continent. Lamola was speaking on the sidelines of the African Union Summit in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia over the weekend. He highlighted investment commitments towards water infrastructure under Agenda 2063, ongoing geopolitical challenges and South Africa's strategic military withdrawal from the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Yeah, water is life. As you are aware, we started with the water summit in Cape Town that was hosted by South Africa with the pledges of investment amounting to more than $10 billion to deal with the water infrastructure. So the members have received this theme with the enthusiasm. It responds to the ongoing challenges of the people in the continent to be able to access water from across the continent for various means of that the water should be used for.
And South Africa's former President Thabo Mbeki has filed papers in the High Court in Johannesburg to join former President Jacob Zuma's review application to challenge Justice Sisi Kampempe's refusal to recuse herself as chairperson of the TRC inquiry. Amongst the reasons advanced, Mbeki says Kampempe applied a subjective, not an objective standard on the issue of bias. Mbeki also seeks an order that President Cyril Ramaphosa terminates Kampempe's appointment, as well as declare all of the Commission's decisions, proceedings and acts that involve her null and void. And relatives of people detained under the state of emergency in El Salvador have protested against the mass trials planned by the government of President Nayib Bukele. They fear many innocent people will be convicted without due process. The BBC's Warren Ball reports.
In March 2022, El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele declared a state of emergency in response to a surge in gang violence. In the ensuing crackdown, around 90,000 people have been arrested, often without a warrant. Since opening a vast supermax prison, the government has released images of hundreds of prisoners sitting in rows, hands behind their heads, which rights groups have criticised as dehumanising conditions. The protesters fear that under the crackdown, many innocent people could be convicted without due process. Hundreds of mass trials are due to begin in El Salvador in the next few months.
For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I am Matapela Mahape.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In our sports headlines, Pamandla Gumbi hails international moves for South African wheelchair basketball stars. And Tour du Rwanda 2026 is officially set with a full 18-team roster. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
From Africa's broadcast capital to the furthest corners of the globe, this is Rise and Shine. Every weekday mornings on Channel Africa.
It's the third and final hour of the Monday edition of Rise and Shine. Thanks so much indeed for starting your morning with us. And we are broadcasting, streaming on the internet. channelafrica.co.za is our address. And you can also get us on your mobile apps. Just look for SABC Plus, SABC PLUS. And we're also on social media. So look in your social media platforms, type in Channel Africa, and you'll catch us there as well. And as we look into the third hour, I, Peter Ndoro, am joined by Asanda Beda.
Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us or staying with us, if that's what you've been doing since 6 a.m. A number of stories we'll be looking at in this hour, starting with a chat that you'll be having. But then later on, I'll be speaking about Cyclone Gezani, which has struck Mozambique's southern province of Inhambane, killing at least 4 people and leaving thousands without electricity or access to clean water. The storm hit just a day after devastating Madagascar, where at least 41 people died and tens of thousands were displaced.
And I'll be looking at having a fascinating conversation actually with a Zimbabwean doctor, scientist, researcher who has been named by Time magazine as one of 100 most influential people in health for the future in the world.
África. Conhece o Ntivani?
Claro que sou eu.
Ntivani é o amante da música de corpo e alma.
Eu amo música africana.
Ele aprecia todos os tipos de melodias e passa os seus dias a ouvir a Channel Africa. Adivinha só, a Channel Africa quer ajudar o Ntivani e os amantes da música em todo o lado a descobrir ainda mais música incrível. Por isso, a Channel Africa está a convocar artistas africanos a submeterem as suas músicas. Músicos, lembrem-se de nos dar todas as informações relevantes no music@channelafrica.co.za. As submissões são a vossa oportunidade de ser ouvidos, mas não garantem inclusão na lista. Todas as submissões serão cuidadosamente analisadas para verificar se cumprem os requisitos da nossa estação. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
The Morning Switch Weekend with the Shy Guy.
I Show Speed, often called Speed, who is a popular American YouTuber and live streamer known for his high-energy personality, loud reactions, and unpredictable humor. He visited Ethiopia, and he was shocked what he found out actually when he got to Ethiopia.
He got to find out that, they don't use the Gregorian calendar.
That is, we are in 2026 right now, and he got to find out they are in 2018.
2018?
Nah, you trolling me.
It's 2026. No. It ain't 2026? Wait, hold on. Wait, we in the past? Ronaldo is still in Real Madrid. Everything is in the past here.
Oh man, how shocked the Speed was.
He went back in time.
Saturday and Sunday mornings belong to the Morning Switch. 3 to 6 a.m. Central African Time. New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
South Africa's Minister of International Relations, Ronald Lamola, says peace, regional stability and sustainable development remain critical priorities for the African continent. Speaking in an exclusive interview with Channel Africa on Saturday on the sidelines of the African Union Summit in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, Lamola highlighted investment commitments toward water infrastructure under Agenda 2063, ongoing geopolitical challenges, South Africa's strategic military withdrawal from the Democratic Republic of Congo, and diplomatic concerns involving Israel as leaders met under the theme assuring sustainable water availability and safe sanitation systems to achieve the goals of Agenda 2063, a theme aimed at strengthening African unity, trade integration and long-term stability. Channel Africa's reporter Michael Mbewe spoke with International Relations Minister Ronald Lamola.
Yeah, water is life. As you are aware, we started with the water summit in Cape Town that was hosted by South Africa with the pledges of investment amounting to more than 10 billion US dollars to deal with the water infrastructure. So the members have received this theme with the enthusiasm because it responds to the ongoing challenges of the people in the continent to be able to access water from across the continent for various means of that the water should be used for.
Of course, this is also happening amid a myriad of issues across the continent, but also across the globe. What are the sentiments there inside with regard to the geopolitical changes that we are seeing in the African continent, but broadly across the world?
Yeah, obviously the main priority that we dealt with now was issues of peace and security in the South Sudan, in Sudan itself, in the Eastern DRC, in the Sahel, with the threat of terrorism, and many parts of the continent where there is instability, because there is an understanding that we will not be able to achieve the objectives of Agenda 2063 without there being peace in many parts of the continent. And we will also not achieve the objectives of regional integration as aimed in the AFCTA, which is aimed for trade if there is instability. So that's why this was one of the first main issues. And then we will deal with various reports on regional trade and integration, various reports on a number of issues where they are champions, health, infrastructure, and so forth. So indeed, we are looking forward to a very successful summit. And obviously, we also take note of the changing geopolitical environment that remains fluid, that the African continent needs to speak in one voice, needs to build its own internal capability through the FCTA where we trade together, and also build peace and stability where there is instability.
We saw also our soldiers, the SNDF, pulling out of MONUSCO, something that caught many people out of surprise. Can you maybe elaborate more in terms of what was the reason behind for our African continent listeners for SABC Channel Africa to really understand why South Africa really pulled out of that?
Yeah, as you are aware, we've been in the DRC for more than 20 years, including under UNESCO and through various platforms. We have felt that the time is right now for us to take a strategic and tactical re-evaluation of our participation and continue also to engage and participate through the various platforms of dialogue. As you may not be aware or aware, we have now assumed the chairship of the regional oversight mechanisms on the DRC and the region, which is the Great Lake. We have also now been part of the PSC of the African continent responsible for peace and security. We are also currently chairing of 5 an ad hoc mechanism or committee that is aimed to support South Sudan to get out of the transitional period through democratic and inclusive elections. So we already have a number of initiatives through which we are supporting regional peace and stability in the AU and through SADC. So that's why we said at this moment it might be good for us to pause and make a strategic reflection in regards to our participation. But it does not mean that in future, if the situation needs South Africa's intervention through the various multilateral platforms like the AU, the UN or SADC, we will always be available.
Another surprise was Israel ambassador issue. For the sake of our listeners in Africa, what do you have to tell them for those that maybe they don't understand the diplomatic protocols that countries sign in terms of how ambassadors or whoever has been sent to any country representing a country must conduct themselves?
Yeah, this should not really surprise anyone, even Israel themselves, because for most part of 2025, we have raised concerns with the charge d'affaires of the Israel embassy because of their conduct, how they were using their website to mock or to do undiplomatic narrative against the government of South Africa interfering in our domestic affairs. And we have done what is called a demarche to further communicate our displeasure. And they never changed, shown any signs of a rehabilitation. So the misconduct was recurring. So we had to act because this was a clear violation of the Vienna Convention.
Now, the African Union Summit of Heads of State and Government has concluded in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, with leaders declaring 2026 the AU Water Summit. Now, Channel Africa on Saturday, and on the sidelines of the African Union Summit in Addis Ababa, was looking at a number of issues, and that's a story that's coming up shortly. But let's take a look at this one, where the Global Water Partnership African nations must intensify cross-border cooperation and improve governance of shared water resources to secure long-term supply across the continent. Ditaba Tsotetsi has more.
Many African countries are struggling with water shortages. The Global Water Partnership chairperson, Pablo Bereshetra, says the governments must invest in maintaining infrastructure and good governance. He has also announced that the GWP will be moving its headquarters from Sweden to Namibia.
We want to expand, and we did a search of potential partners, and Namibia came in first. So we are very happy with this, for us, bold decision to move our headquarters to Africa, to Namibia. And I have visited Namibia together with my team and our CEO of GWP, Mr. Alex Simalawi, and we are sure that this decision will increase the impact that we already have in over 180 countries across the world.
CEO of Global Water Projects, Alex Simalawi, says that Namibia will be working together with South Africa.
Namibia is a desert. Where else can you go and demonstrate issues around how to address water solutions than in a desert? South Africa moves from a desert in some parts where it's arid and some areas that get floods all the time. So those extremes present huge challenges. So having South Africa and Namibia working together as in a new global South architecture of global water leadership is completely unheard of, and we are looking forward to leverage that.
African countries have made considerable efforts to put the water supply on the agenda of the AU this year. Minister of Water and Sanitation in South Africa, Phemi Majodina, says a high water demand in the country pose a challenge on infrastructure.
Our mandate is that of building a water resource, dams, tunnels, canals. But what we did in Johannesburg, working with Rainwater, is to build a big water treatment plant, which is Zekerbosch. Zekerbosch will go to an extent of giving our neighboring countries treated water. But we don't have crisis in terms of water availability. We do have water. Our water security is in the balance. We have enough water in all our big dams we can provide. But as we pump water, the infrastructure has decayed. The water is leaking. When you go on each and every street of Joburg, Tshwane, eThekwini, you name them, you cross water going down the street. That water is a treated water that is supposed to be in taps, but it does not go to the taps. The growing population need a lot of reservoirs. There is overconsumption of water in South Africa. The international norm is 173 megaliters per day, but South Africa was standing at 239. That's abnormal.
Former Tanzanian President Jakaya Kikwete says that there is a campaign to address water challenge on the continent.
We have had the experts are continuing to do work. As we said, there's been the first work has been presented on the possibilities of raising the 30 billion gap.
Namibian President Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah says Windhoek is also experiencing a water crisis.
Now that we realize the importance of water and it is negatively impacted by the climate change, this is the time for us to come together and agree on the way forward to see ourselves water is life. Therefore, our gathering here today must re-energize our efforts to work towards improving access to clean water and sanitation.
Senegal and the United Arab Emirates are co-chairs of the World Water Summit 2026. The UAE will host the Water and Sanitation Summit in December this year. Ditaba Sotetsi, SABC News.
A leading African scientist and clinical research innovator has been named on the Time 100 Health 2026 list, a global recognition of the world's most influential people shaping the future of health. Dr. Tariro Makazange is the founder and the CEO of the African Clinical Research Network, or ACRN, an organization that's working to expand Africa's role in global clinical trials and build world-class African-led research systems across the continent. Her work focuses on strengthening trial sites, digital infrastructure, and partnerships that Africa is not just a participant in global health innovation, but a leader in designing and delivering them. I spoke to Dr. Makazange and began by asking her what this Time 100 health recognition meant to her and for African science.
Thank you, Peter. It is truly an honor to be included among an amazing group of innovators, healthcare leaders, policy leaders. So it was truly an honor for the work that we are doing as ACRN to be part of this recognition and see the recognition of the work of several leaders on the continent as well.
How significant is it to see through you, actually, African-focused clinical research being recognized globally in this way?
It is very significant. As I often remind folks, we're about 20% of the world's population, but only contribute about 3-4% of global clinical research, clinical trials, scientific output. So we're punching well below our weight, and I think we could punch much, much higher. So I think this is the start, the recognition that Africa is ready. We really want to be the leaders of science and innovation, particularly in healthcare globally. And this is the start of many of us catalyzing, laying the seeds for that change on the continent.
And on that point, I mean, you argue that Africa is often treated as an endpoint for innovation that's developed elsewhere. So what's been missing in the traditional global research model?
For us as a continent, we haven't made the necessary investments that we need to make in science and innovation, whether it is dedicating national budgets to research, whether it's strengthening how we train young people in STEM. In our universities, we're doing an excellent job of training professional scientists, doctors, nurses, pharmacists, etc. But it's also important for us to increasingly focus on training innovative scientists, your chemists, biochemists, physicists, mathematicians, etc., who are focused on how do we create solutions for our local environment that lead to industries, lead to jobs, and enable us on the continent to be innovators. So not just consumers of therapeutics, technology, innovation, but really driving the innovation, particularly to address our local needs, which will ultimately also be globally relevant.
I think you've partly answered my next question, and I'm looking at Africa Clinical Research Network. What is it that you're doing? And in simple terms for our listeners, what is it that you're doing now and building that didn't exist before?
So what we're building is a network of sites on the continent that can do clinical research and trials and ultimately de-risk doing trials on the continent. So part of the reason we're a relatively small contributor to global clinical trials is that global industry is not aware of the capabilities on the continent, is uncertain of how to work on the continent, fears the fragmented regulatory space. We have about 54 plus countries, each has their own regulator, each has their own processes. So we really want to focus on how do we de-risk doing trials on the continent. And just as Australia, Europe have attracted research to their continent and their countries, we want to do the same in Africa. And our focus is around that site network, de-risk doing trials on the continent. The second thing that we are very passionate about is how do we use technology and leverage technology to enable Africa to leapfrog in this space. We haven't had this industry for the last 3 to 4 decades. We're fortunate that we're building this now as technology is increasingly available. The cost of intelligence and is starting to decrease. There's a lot of opportunity for us as Africa to build out this industry in a way that is agile, technology focused, and helps us be very competitive in this space. The third thing we're focused on is building that community engagement and trust. So really understanding our stakeholders broadly, all the way from governments, policymakers, to the very communities that we're hoping health interventions can serve. So that strong focus and community engagement is really core to our DNA. And then lastly, we see this space as not just a charity philanthropy space. We want to grow this as a life sciences business on the continent. We look at places like China or Australia or other areas where governments have said this is a key component of economic growth. If you don't do science and innovation, if you don't develop therapeutics, you cannot have a robust economy. So we're really looking at how can we as ACRN contribute to building this industry on the continent beyond philanthropy, beyond global health, and truly meeting the healthcare needs for the continent.
Explain to me, perhaps in practical terms, what it means to design and lead our own clinical trials instead of perhaps just hosting them.
In practical terms, it's having strong regulators that are agile and stringent as well, so that protocols that investigators on the continent or global investigators submit are reviewed rapidly, predictably, and efficiently. It also means African scientists being able to do both, so service and work with global partners in global clinical trials, but also be able to use that same trial infrastructure, regulatory environment to test innovations that are homegrown. So practically on the ground, it really is about delivering trials at a cost-efficient, effective manner that's conscious of time, and really importantly, conscious of quality. Our industry is a quality industry. Everybody wants to be able to trust the data, know that participants were handled safely, data was handled safely, transparently, and efficiently. So the day-to-day is really focused on that execution, that quality, that timely approach, and that cost-competitive approach.
So Kofi in Ghana, Tunde in Nigeria, Farai in Harare, Jabu in Soweto is listening, and they're thinking, this sounds great, but what does it mean for me as a patient, perhaps, and maybe even our health systems across the continent?
So as Jabu or Farai, if you're unwell and say have a medical condition, you are going to need a therapeutic to treat you. So HIV is an easy example that I think many of us can relate to, but it's the same for breast cancer, for sickle cell disease, you'll need a drug, a medication to treat your condition. But if that drug or medication was studied somewhere else in a population that's different from your population, maybe you metabolize drugs differently based on your genetics. Maybe your environment is different. You have a different nutritional status. There's a whole host of differences. You're assuming that the data that came from, for example, North America is the same as the data that applies to you as Jabu or Farai. And so in many ways, when we need health, we're really relying on data and processes that are not locally driven. So what it means for patients on the ground is the more that we engage in research, the better that we are as scientists, clinicians, to have data that applies to Jabu and Farai. And that engagement has really enabled the development of therapies. So for HIV, for example, all of us are highly privileged by the individuals in the 80s, 90s, all the way to today, the individuals in South Africa, Zimbabwe, Uganda, Kenya, who have enrolled in clinical trials to study long-acting antivirals.
That was Dr. Tariro Makadzange, who's the founder and CEO of the Africa Clinical Research Network, recently included on the Time 100 Health 2026 list of the world's most influential people shaping the future of health. And that's a young woman from Zimbabwe doing great things on a global scale. It's 8:30, which means it's time for your news headlines with Matabelo Mahape.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Your headlines this hour. South Sudan combats its largest and longest cholera outbreak since independence, with the WHO reporting a decrease in new cases. And Malawi has launched a vaccination program in Blantyre after detecting a derived poliovirus in sewage. And Britain is looking to regulate artificial intelligence to protect children when they use internet services. More details on these and other stories at top of the hour.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Let's now find out what's happening in the world of sports. We get the latest from Fikile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
We begin with basketball. Wheelchairs Basketball South Africa's team head coach Phamandla Gumbi has expressed his excitement after several senior players secured international contracts for the 2026 season. This follows confirmation from Wheelchair Basketball South Africa, WBSA, that Ayabonga Jim, Shane Williams, Xola Lezo, and young stars Pelele Dlamini have recently signed professional deals in Spain and France. Gumbi described the milestone as a proud moment for the federation and a reflection of the structures that put in place to elevate the sport. He says it's a very proud moment for them as a federation. The foundation of values, discipline and belief that they have built and set to build on high performance standards and a structured approach to competition and preparation is beginning to show results. Gumbi, who took over the reins from Trooper Johnson last year, also credited his predecessor for laying a strong foundation. On to football news. Mamelodi Sundowns, the Brazilians' coach Miguel Cardoso believes their win over MC Alger underlined the team's capacity to rise above adversity. The Brazilians registered a commanding 2-0 victory over Rulani Mukwena's Chargers at Loftus Fairfield, which guaranteed their spot in the CAF Champions League quarterfinals for an 8th successive season and the campaign. And in Rwanda, Tour de Rwanda 2026 is officially set with a full 18-team roster and a major rule change that promises to reshape race tactics. The race will span 993 kilometers, with the longest stage being the 174-kilometer Gicumbi-Ramagana route. Organizers have confirmed that German team Bike Aid and the newly formed Mixed West Africa squad will complete the lineup for the race scheduled from the 22nd of February to the 1st of March. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fidel Ngwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Coming up shortly, the business news, and we'll have an update there from Nosipho Zuma. But first, let's listen to this.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802.
África. Conhece o Ntivani?
Claro que sou eu.
Ntivani é o amante da música de corpo e alma.
Eu amo música africana.
Ele aprecia todos os tipos de melodias e passa os seus dias a ouvir a Channel Africa. Adivinha só, a Channel Africa quer ajudar o Ntivani e os amantes da música em todo o lado a descobrir ainda mais música incrível. Por isso, a Channel Africa está a convocar artistas africanos a submeterem as suas músicas. Músicos, lembrem-se de nos dar todas as informações relevantes no music@channelafrica.co.za. As submissões são a vossa oportunidade de ser ouvidos, mas não garantem inclusão na lista. Todas as submissões serão cuidadosamente analisadas para verificar se cumprem os requisitos da nossa estação. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Let's just do it.
Your life just got easier. Get the Channel Africa app and take us wherever you go. Catch the latest news, enjoy your favorite shows, stream the music you love, and stay connected to the continent. All in one spot, right in your pocket. Simple, quick, and always with you. The Channel Africa app. Download it now on iOS and Android. New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
8:37 is your time in case you're watching it, and it's time for the business news. And at the business desk this morning, let's say good morning once again to Nosipho Zuma.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. In your business news this hour, Kenyan President William Ruto says the African Continental Free Trade Area is entering a decisive phase aimed at boosting Africa's economic integration, industrialization, and global trade participation. Ruto was speaking at the recently concluded 39th African Union Summit in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. He emphasized that the AFCFTA was a flagship project of Agenda 2063 that drives structural transformation, value addition, and broad-based continental growth.
Africa today stands at an important moment in its economic journey, shaped by major demographic change, expanding regional integration, and rapid technological progress. These forces are redefining our role in global markets and creating new opportunities for investment, enterprise, and growth. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area is one of the flagship projects of Agenda 2063 and a practical expression of our shared vision of the Africa we want.
South Africa's Minister of Agriculture, John Steenhuisen, says new legislative changes that will be made to clamp down on the current foot-and-mouth disease outbreak will deal with the handling of livestock products as well as meat and abattoir procedures. When asked if the current legislative framework in place is adequate, especially in light of announcements made by President Cyril Ramaphosa on Thursday during his State of the Nation address, Steenhuisen said the new regulations will look at handling of livestock products.
In the past, all these procedures were designed to deal with the previous policy. With any new policy, it requires new regulations and new legislation, and that is currently what we're busy with in terms of both the Animal Health Act, but also the other legislation that pertains to it. Once this is done, it will align with our plan to get South Africa to be foot and mouth free. This will be the first time in our history that we've embarked upon a mass vaccination of the entire national herd. And of course, any new policy like this would require legislative amendments, but also regulatory amendments.
The South African Social Security Agency, SASSA, says the suspension of 70,000 people from its grant payment system has saved it just over $31 million. The suspensions followed a grant review process aimed at improving the system's reliability and integrity. Now, for the current financial year, SASSA planned to conduct 420,000 reviews. By the third quarter, it had notified just under 400,000 beneficiaries to present themselves. So far, about 240,000 of those have completed the review process. The 70,000 beneficiaries were suspended after failing to come forward. The agency spokesperson Paseka Letsatsi says during the review process it was discovered that some public servants were benefiting illegally from SASSA grants.
In some instances, we have a relationship with other sister departments. So if you work for a department X, we will take the file to your department and we'll have to have an arrangement. You must sign an acknowledgement of debt so that you pay back the money. But in some instances, we have a pure fraud taking place. We take the file to the South African Police Services. There are many people that were arrested all over the country. Recently, others were arrested in Mpumalanga, others were arrested in Gauteng, all over the country. People who are trying to defraud SASSA in terms of identity theft and so forth.
Mali's government has approved a draft decree renewing Barrick Mining's Lulo gold mining permit for an additional 10 years. Mali, one of Africa's leading gold producers, resolved a dispute in November with Barrick over profit sharing and control of the Lulo Kongoto gold mining complex after 2 years of negotiations sparked by a 2023 mining code that raised taxes and increased the state's stake in projects. Barrick agreed to withdraw its arbitration case at the World Bank's Dispute Tribunal, while Mali said it would drop all charges against the Canadian miner and its affiliates, release the company's employees, and return operational control of the complex to the Canadian miner. And finally, oil has been a little changed at the start of the week as traders monitored geopolitical risk before talks between the US and Iran are expected to resume on Tuesday. Brent traded close to $68 a barrel after its first back-to-back weekly drop this year, while West Texas Intermediate was near $63. On Friday, US President Donald Trump said that regime change would be the best outcome for Iran, increasing pressure ahead of the negotiations in Geneva. Your financial indicators: one US dollar in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 352, and Botswana is 13.06. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 447, and in Zambia it's 18 kwacha 122. The BRICS countries: $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 ruble 22. Russia is 76 rubles 62. India is 90 rupees 44. China at 6 yuan 90. And in South Africa, $1 is trading at 15 rand 92. $1 is trading at 73 pence to the British pound and 84 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $4,994 and platinum at $2,053 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $67.81 a barrel. Now, for any stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Nosipho Zuma.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
All right, at just a little shy of 8:45 Central African time, we go to Mozambique, where Cyclone Gezani has struck the southern province of Inhambane, killing at least 4 people and leaving thousands without electricity or access to clean water. The storm hit just a day after devastating Madagascar, where at least 41 people died and tens of thousands were displaced. Joining us live now is Guy Taylor, UNICEF Mozambique's Chief of Advocacy Communication and Partnerships to discuss the humanitarian response and the impact on children and communities from this cyclone. Guy, thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you describe what you're seeing on the ground in terms of the impact of Cyclone Gezani in Inhambane since it hit?
Well, I was in Inhambane over the weekend, and indeed on Friday night when Cyclone Gezani arrived on the coast of Mozambique. We did see some substantial impact. Around 1,000 homes have been damaged or destroyed, around 100 schools, and as you mentioned just now, tragically 4 people lost their lives. I think thankfully the impact of this cyclone has been less than some of the tropical cyclones that we've seen in previous years, for example, Freddie, Chido, Jude, particularly Idai, but nevertheless still an important impact and hitting a country which is very vulnerable already, many children already living without access to clean water, without access to healthcare, and also having recently been affected by historic flooding in the south part of the country, which affected around 700,000 people. So cyclones really the last thing that Mozambique needs at the moment. We're hoping that there won't be any more during this cyclone season, but if we're looking at patterns from previous years, I think there's a very real risk of additional cyclones as we go through the season here.
What are the most pressing needs right now for these communities and especially children?
Yeah, well, children and families need access to clean water, to medications, to medical supplies, and to those critical services which keep children alive and keep them well. So health services, treatment for malnutrition. I mean, I think even before the recent flooding, which we had in Mozambique, around 4 in 10 children in Mozambique were living with malnutrition. So when children are potentially exposed to waterborne diseases, which we see frequently with the kind of flooding that the country has seen in the past months, there's a very real risk also of waterborne diseases, which can often prove deadly for children who are already in a malnourished state. So those are our primary concerns at the moment. We're working with our partners in support of the government to respond to the flooding and to make sure that children can get access to those critical basic services, to clean water, to healthcare, treatment for malnutrition, and get kids also back in school is a priority for us.
What is UNICEF's role then in assisting in this disaster, and how quickly is aid able to reach those who are in need?
Well, in the wake of the flooding, UNICEF has been distributing large quantities of essential supplies. In the initial days following the recent flooding, it was very difficult to access communities, and UNICEF and other agencies were using helicopters, boats, planes to distribute supplies to the communities that were cut off. Usually in this kind of scenario, we will have already pre-positioned large quantities of those essential supplies so that they can be rapidly deployed to communities when disasters hit. And that's what we did both with this flooding and also with the cyclone which arrived over the weekend. But I will say that, even before the onset of these emergencies, Mozambique is a country where we have many hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of children who are in urgent humanitarian need, and the humanitarian system and organizations like UNICEF are really quite overstretched in trying to respond to these emergencies.
So looking ahead then, what contingencies can be put in place with future cyclones? I know you mentioned it is cyclone season, but you are also hoping that this won't be there won't be another one after this one, Gezani, that hits Mozambique.
Yeah. Well, last year, Mozambique was hit by 3 tropical cyclones in short order, Jude, Dikaledi, and Chido, all of which had substantial impact, and particularly Cyclone Chido. So I think it's quite likely that we will see further cyclones. I mean, this is all the impact of climate change. I think tropical cyclones used to be something of a rarity in Mozambique, but in the past, say, 10 years, we've been seeing them on pretty much an annual basis. And then last year we saw 3. This year we've already seen 1. So there's a strong possibility that we'll get more, potentially more flooding. We are, as I said before, working to pre-position essential supplies in our warehouses across the country so that we're ready to distribute them quickly in the event of a disaster. Of course, we liaise on a regular basis with our humanitarian partners, other UN agencies, and with government agencies responsible for disaster response to ensure that there's a plan that we're working according to the government's plan and delivering support in a coordinated manner. So, yeah, we're ready, but additional support urgently needed to ensure that we're really able to respond at the scale that is needed to crises of these magnitudes.
Guy, thank you so much for your time and giving us an update on this issue.
Thank you.
Thanks for the work you're doing at UNICEF there as well. Guy Taylor is UNICEF Mozambique's Chief of Advocacy, Communication and Partnerships, painting the latest picture there coming from Cyclone Gezani in Mozambique.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
After Rise and Shine on Channel Africa comes On the Move.
Before you go there, I mean, the naming of the cyclone Gezani is a bit odd, isn't it?
Because Gezani means to wash.
Exactly.
Which involves, water.
Sheesh,
and there's obviously water with the cyclone,
drowning
with the rain.
people, not washing them.
It's drowning them now. It's not washing them. It's horrible.
I wonder how they choose their names.
Apparently, I've heard about it's in alphabetical order.
But
depending on like how many cyclones there've been.
Yes.
So if you know the first letter of the cyclone, then you're like
Yes.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That means the
Yes.
seventh cyclone. So it has to be named after the letter G. And then the name itself, I'm sure, will come
Where
from
does it
the
come from?
language
Is it the
or
country?
whatever.
I'm just glad it's not
country.
a female that's
Does
been
each country put
a female name.
a name forward? I
What?
wonder.
Yeah, I think the country will give it a name. I mean, you can't call a cyclone in Madagascar Gezani.
Yes, it's
But I'm glad they're
interesting.
not using female names like they do with the hurricanes in the US.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes. I mean, in Zimbabwe, we called it Hurricane, was it Idai? Which means, how do you translate this? To love or to like.
Mm-hmm.
So, why
What's
would you
there
call
to love or to like about a
exactly? Why would you
hurricane?
call a cyclone like a name?
I
like
wonder
that?
who has the responsibility in every country to actually name the cyclone.
Gezani.
Yeah. What are we
Okay.
looking forward to today on the move?
Okay, we're getting lost in the cyclones now. But we're going back to conversations about love in today's second hour for the African View.
Oh.
And people have actually gotten more in-depth relationships now with AI. So people who have like things like ChatGPT and the likes on their phones, people will ask their apps everything. But also, a lot of people are using them like psychologists, right?
Yes.
I'm telling you my problems, you're giving me outcomes. But
Yes.
some people are also using that for like a romantic outlet of sorts. So people are having relationships with these apps. And we're going to speak about that in today's debate, right?
Wow.
Should people be having relationships with AI? And what kind of relationship is it? Is it like a relationship with someone and a pet? Is that how
Yes.
we're using these relationships?
Do you know
Are
what?
some actually using it as an outlet of not feeling romantically lonely?
Do you know what? As you were speaking, I thought of the perfect kind of AI relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine you are 85 years old
Yeah.
and you're in a home. Most of your friends have died.
Yes.
And you are having a conversation with AI about specific events that happened in 19 whatever.
Yeah.
Nobody would know about them.
Right.
But AI would be
Would
able to have a
know.
full-on conversation with you as if you were there, as if you
That's
were a
true.
friend.
Now imagine, I mean, that's just one context,
Yeah.
right? So then it's not so far-fetched that
Yeah.
people are doing this because
Yeah.
humans are supposed to
Yeah.
connect.
Yes.
And so if you feel like there's no one in your life to connect to and you're
Yes.
feeling lonely and there's this thing that actually speaks back to you and can have
Yes.
conversation with you.
Yeah.
But then would it be like a deep hole that you like sink in because what about the emotions?
You're right. I think there's a danger of disassociation where you become reclusive and not connect with society
Humans, yeah.
properly because AI will never disappoint you. It'll never
Exactly.
let you down.
It's not going to ghost you. It's not going to
Yes, yes.
have mood swings and all those kinds of
And
things.
yet we do need the chaos of real relationships, I think, to grow.
We do.
That's
so it's going to be an interesting debate.
I look forward to listening to that one.
Right.
What does AI think about that?
Maybe we'll ask for AI's opinion on that.
New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
So, the impact of global funding cuts on HIV programs is under the spotlight as the health advocates warn that vulnerable communities are being bearing the brunt of reduced support. The French Institute of South Africa hosted a panel discussion examining the effects of the 2025 withdrawal of HIV funding, particularly on the at-risk LGBTQIA plus communities. Our reporter Lebohang Mabange attended the briefing and filed this report.
1 year after major cuts to international HIV funding, organizations working on prevention and treatment say the consequences are already being felt on the ground. Jean Spiri, director of the French Institute of South Africa and vice president of the French HIV prevention group CRISP, says the reduction in funding has had measurable global effects.
The cuts in the US budget of cooperation has very concrete consequences in 1 year. And it's very impressive because, for example, in 1 year, there is 2.5 million of people who took PrEP before and have no more access. 2.5 million. You have also a decrease on the condom distribution. It's minus 35%. Burundi, it's 64% of people who was on PrEP that are not today. In Ghana, it's a reduction for the volume of pregnant women who have pills, so there is an increase in the transmission between mother and child.
Local organizations say the disruption has forced them into crisis response mode as they try to ensure continuity of care. Lunga Sitole, a linkage officer at Out LGBT Wellbeing, says thousands of people in Johannesburg were directly affected.
We have been doing a whole lot of damage control since last year up until now, because in actual fact, in the whole COJ, we Johannesburg, we had about 13,000 people on PrEP, we had about 6,000 people on ARVs. Imagine letting those people go without proper explanation and, a plan B for them. So what they knew was someone is coming to render me all my services from the comfortability of my home. Imagine cutting all of that and no one's there to explain.
Media platforms and community networks also struggled to respond as uncertainty left many without clear information on where to access services. Louis de Barros, creator of South Africa's longest-running LGBTQ news and lifestyle platform, says the sudden halt in programs created widespread confusion.
We actually, even within the organizations, we didn't know what was happening. We were simply told to stop. We had no idea of what would happen next. So it was really frustrating because, we were getting emails from people asking us questions. Where can I get services? Where can I get PrEP? Where can I get condoms? And, we didn't know the answer to that. So it was, as a communicator, it was an incredibly frustrating time. We literally were not even for a period allowed to man our phones and answer calls from people or reply to emails.
Panelists emphasize the urgent need for sustainable funding and coordinated responses to prevent setbacks in the fight against HIV. They warn that without renewed support, gains made in prevention and treatment, especially among vulnerable communities, could be reserved. Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Lebohang Mabange in Johannesburg, South Africa.
And that's how we come to the end of today's edition of Rise and Shine from Ifira Ndoro.
Yes, we say goodbye. I'm Asanda Beda. We'll do this again tomorrow at 6 a.m. Central African time. Bye-bye.
And we hand over to On the Move.
New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Good morning. It's 9 a.m. Central Africa time. Time for On the Move with myself, Palisa Tau, and Benjamin Moshadama. But first, let's get our latest news update.
SABC News. The African Perspective. SABC News. The African Perspective.